Welcome, brave souls, to another journey into the shadows. Tonight, we delve into the haunted grounds of Raisin Battlefield Park in Monroe, Michigan, a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. As the wind whispers through the trees and the moon casts its pale light, join us as we uncover the chilling tales that have lingered for over 2 centuries. The winter of 1813 brought with it bitter cold, snow-laden fields, and a conflict that would forever scar the land, now known as Raisin Battlefield Park. The Battle of Frenchtown, as it came to be known, was a clash of determination, desperation, and tragedy. American forces, commanded by Brigadier General James Winchester, faced the combined might of British troops and Native American allies. The battle was fought with an intensity that belied the quiet appearance of the snow-covered landscape, leaving a legacy that would ripple through time, long after the guns fell silent and the smoke cleared. As the sun rose over the frostbitten fields, the tension was palpable. Winchester's forces, comprised largely of militia and inexperienced soldiers, were determined to secure victory and reclaim control of the region. The British, experienced and resolute, had strategically positioned themselves with Native American warriors skilled in both ambush and guerrilla tactics. The encounter was brutal and chaotic. The crack of musket fire, the booming of cannons, and the anguished cries of the wounded filled the air. Snow, already thick on the ground, was stained red with the blood of the fallen, turning the battlefield into a scene of horror and despair. In the aftermath, over 300 American soldiers had lost their lives, their bodies scattered across the frozen terrain. The surviving forces, battered and broken, were forced to surrender to the British. Those taken prisoner faced unimaginable hardship, confined in makeshift camps, and left to contend with the harsh winter elements. Yet even in surrender, the human cost of the conflict would not end, a grim act that would stain the history of the region and cement its place as a site of sorrow and unrest. Visitors to the battlefield today often speak of the pervasive sense of unease that seems to hang over the grounds. Though the snow has long since melted and the land has been cultivated, the echoes of that fateful day remain. Some claim that if one stands quietly among the trees and listens carefully, the faint sounds of musket fire and distant cries can still be heard. These echoes, subtle yet persistent, are said to be the restless spirits of soldiers who never found peace. The very soil, soaked with the memory of battle, seems to vibrate with their lingering presence. Rangers and historians alike have noted that the spirits manifest in different ways. On some occasions, visitors report the faint outlines of figures in period uniforms moving silently across the fields, their actions almost imperceptible, as if the dead are replaying fragments of the battle over and over. Some have seen soldiers kneeling beside invisible comrades, tending to wounds that will never heal, or marching in formation across the open land, their movements eerily precise, unbroken by time. These sightings are fleeting, often disappearing when approached, leaving only the memory of what was glimpsed and a chill that refuses to fade. The natural world itself seems to respond to the echoes of that day. On quiet winter mornings, when the air is still and the river that gave the park its name reflects the pale light of dawn, an unnatural hush descends. Birds cease to chirp, the wind dies down, and the usual rustle of leaves seems absent. It is as though the land itself is holding its breath, acknowledging the magnitude of the lives lost and the sorrow etched into every tree, every stone, and every frozen patch of earth. In this silence, many claim they can feel the presence of the fallen, their spirits watching, mourning, and perhaps guiding those who tread upon their former battleground. Some of the most compelling experiences reported involve auditory phenomena. Witnesses describe hearing the clash of swords, the distant roar of artillery, and the anguished screams of soldiers, often when no one else is around. These sounds are said to intensify near specific locations, such as the former encampments and the riverbanks where many soldiers fell. It is in these places that the boundary between the living and the dead seems thinnest, a liminal space where history and the supernatural converge. Local legends speak of the soldiers, ghosts, wandering the park at night, retracing their final steps. Some visitors report feeling a sudden chill, as though icy fingers brush against their shoulders, Others recount the sensation of being followed by unseen eyes, a pressure on the back of the neck, or the feeling of someone walking just behind them on the trails. These experiences are never threatening in a conventional sense, but they carry a weight of history and sorrow that is palpable. It is as though the spirits are bound, not by anger, but by remembrance, compelled to linger where their lives were violently interrupted. The river itself, flowing silently beside the battlefield, is said to carry whispers of the past. On foggy mornings, some have reported hearing faint cries and commands, as though the water itself echoes the orders shouted by officers in 1813. Others speak of shadowy figures appearing at the edge of the river, staring blankly into the current, their expressions unreadable yet heavy with loss. The natural beauty of the sight contrasts sharply with these experiences, creating an unsettling juxtaposition of peace and perpetual unrest. Even during the day, the battlefield carries an eerie ambience. The wind seems to shift with purpose, rustling the leaves in unnatural patterns. Sunlight filtering through the trees often creates fleeting shadows that seem to take the shape of soldiers moving silently across the terrain. Visitors walking the marked trails occasionally report a feeling of being observed, a sensation of unseen eyes following them from the tree line, as though the ghosts of Frenchtown still keep watch over the land they once fought to protect. Those who spend time in quiet reflection on the battlefield often come away changed, struck by the overwhelming presence of history in every inch of the park. It is not merely a place of learning or remembrance, it is a sacred, haunted ground. Each tree, riverbank, and open field holds the memory of lives interrupted, of courage displayed in the face of fear, and of tragedy that has left its mark not only on history but on the spirit of the land itself. The Battle of Frenchtown may have ended more than 2 centuries ago, yet its echoes continue to ripple through time. Raisin National Battlefield Park stands as a testament to that enduring legacy. The spirits of the fallen soldiers, their anguish, bravery, and sorrow, remain a silent but palpable presence, reminding every visitor of the cost of conflict, the persistence of memory, and the mysteries that linger when the past refuses to rest. The Battle of Frenchtown ended in chaos and tragedy, but the horrors did not cease with the clash of muskets and bayonets. Just days after the battle, the wounded American soldiers who had surrendered were subjected to a brutal act that would forever stain the history of Raisin, known as the Raisin Massacre. The brutality shocked the nation, and the blood spilled on the battlefield did not simply wash away, it lingered, carried in the very air of the fields, and is said to have left an indelible mark on the land itself. Today, visitors to Raisin National Battlefield Park often remark that the air feels different here, heavier with history, as though the earth itself remembers the suffering it bore. Those walking the trails report a sudden chill that has no natural explanation, a cold that creeps up the spine and seeps into the bones. Many believe that this sensation is the lingering presence of the fallen soldiers, trapped between the world of the living and the dead, still reliving the final moments of their lives. The most unsettling aspect of the park is the reports of disembodied cries. On quiet days, when the wind is still and the fields are calm, visitors have claimed to hear the anguished wails of the soldiers who perished during the massacre. These are not the sounds of nature, the rustling of leaves or the chirping of birds, but distinct. Some witnesses describe hearing individual voices, crying out for comrades or mourning their fate, while others hear a chorus of grief that seems to rise from the ground itself. The effect is disorienting, leaving visitors frozen in place, listening in awe and fear as the past briefly comes alive. The areas most commonly associated with these paranormal experiences are those closest to where the massacre occurred. Along the banks of the River Raisin, where wounded men were left vulnerable, the wind seems to carry voices more clearly. Some visitors report seeing fleeting shadows moving across the fields, figures dressed in early 19th century military uniforms, indistinct yet unmistakably human. These apparitions are rarely static. They move, as if retracing the desperate attempts of the soldiers to survive, or perhaps replaying the chaos of that fateful day for any living witness willing to see. Cold spots are another hallmark of the massacre's lingering presence. Even in the warmth of summer, pockets of frigid air appear along the battlefield. Visitors often describe the sensation of an invisible hand brushing against them or a sudden chill that surrounds them without warning. These manifestations seem to intensify near key locations, the site of the most violent confrontations, where bodies once lay unburied for days, and where the earth still holds the memory of those who were killed in agony. For many, these cold spots are not frightening in themselves, but deeply poignant. A silent reminder of lives lost too soon and the horrors of war that transcend time. Accounts from park staff add weight to the experiences reported by visitors. Rangers who have spent years walking the trails tell of moments when the battlefield feels alive with unseen activity. Objects left on monuments or along pathways sometimes shift inexplicably. Footsteps are heard echoing across empty fields, and shadows are glimpsed at the edge of vision. While some incidents have rational explanations, the consistency of reports over decades suggests that something beyond the ordinary inhabits this land. The spirits of the fallen appear to linger, not out of malice, but out of tragedy, their presence a solemn echo of history's darkest moments. Visitors who encounter these manifestations often speak of a mixture of fear, sorrow, and reverence. The River Raisin massacre was not simply a historical event. It was a human catastrophe, one that continues to resonate through the very air of the battlefield. Those who walk the trails are not merely witnessing scenery. They are, in a sense, walking among the souls of those who fell, experiencing a connection to the past that is tactile, emotional, and deeply affecting. The haunting of River Raisin National Battlefield Park serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of war. The cries that echo across the fields, the sudden chills, the fleeting shadows all bear witness to a tragedy that cannot be forgotten. The spirits of the soldiers who perished in the massacre have made the battlefield their eternal home. The River Raisin massacre, brutal and sorrowful, lives on not just in history books, but in the very essence of the land. A haunting presence felt by those who dared to listen. Scattered across the rolling fields of River Raisin National Battlefield Park stand solemn monuments, silent sentinels of a history steeped in blood, courage, and tragedy. These monuments, erected to honor the lives lost during the Battle of Frenchtown and the subsequent River Raisin massacre, serve as physical reminders of sacrifice. Among them, the Raisin Brigade monument is perhaps the most prominent, a granite sentinel commemorating the Kentucky soldiers who gave their lives in service to their country. Yet, beyond their role as historical markers, these monuments are said to hold an uncanny presence, a quiet yet persistent haunting that stretches across the centuries. By day, the monuments exude solemn dignity. Visitors often pause before them, reading engraved names and reflecting on the cost of war. The crisp air carries the faint scent of winter pine and damp earth, mingling with the echoes of history embedded in the soil. Yet, as dusk descends and the battlefield falls into shadow, the monuments seem to awaken in ways that defy natural explanation. Park rangers and visitors alike have reported strange occurrences, particularly around the Raisin Brigade monument. Footsteps echo on the surrounding gravel paths, seemingly belonging to no one. The air becomes inexplicably cold, pressing against the skin and seeping into bones, as though the temperature itself remembers the anguish of the fallen. It is near the Raisin Brigade monument that the haunting is said to be most intense. Witnesses describe feeling a presence, invisible but undeniably real, that seems to move among the rows of stones. Some claim to have seen fleeting shadows flitting across the monument's surface, shadows shaped like soldiers in period uniforms, standing in silent vigil. These apparitions are not threatening in the conventional sense. They appear solemn, almost protective, as if keeping watch over their comrades and over the visitors who dared to walk the grounds after sunset. The silence surrounding these moments is profound, broken only by the faintest rustle of wind through the trees or the distant cry of a lone bird, magnifying the sense that the past is very much alive here. The footsteps heard around the monuments are perhaps the most unnerving aspect. They vary in cadence, sometimes heavy and deliberate, other times quick and fleeting as, though multiple presences are pacing in unison, retracing the movements of soldiers long deceased. Those who hear these phantom steps often report an instinctive urge to look over their shoulders, yet when they do, there is no one in sight. The feeling of being watched persists, a subtle pressure that lingers even after leaving the monument's vicinity. Some visitors have described hearing the faint clatter of equipment or the shuffle of soldiers' feet, as if the battlefield is replaying itself in spectral fragments. It is not only auditory phenomena that make the monuments haunted. Temperature anomalies are frequently reported. On otherwise mild nights, a sudden bone-chilling cold envelops those near the Raisin Brigade monument. Park staff have noted that these cold spots often appear unpredictably, sometimes lingering in one area before vanishing as quickly as they arrived. The phenomenon is so consistent that many attribute it to paranormal activity rather than weather, a physical manifestation of the grief and anguish that the land has absorbed over centuries. Some visitors report more interactive experiences. A few have recounted the sensation of a light touch of brush against the hand or shoulder without any visible cause. Others describe hearing whispers, unintelligible yet unmistakably human, carried on the night air. These whispers often seem to originate from the stones themselves, echoing the names and deeds of those memorialized by the monuments. For many, the effect is chilling yet oddly reverent, a reminder that the soldiers commemorated here were not mere names etched in stone, but living individuals whose lives were violently interrupted. The Raisin Brigade monument, in particular, is rumored to attract spirits who linger for reasons beyond historical memory. Some speculate that the spirits are drawn to the stones because of the intensity of emotion that the battlefield endured. Death, fear, courage, and sorrow all concentrated here, leaving an imprint on both the earth and the air. Whether these spirits are the soldiers themselves, or echoes of those who witnessed the battle and its aftermath, no one can say for certain. Yet their presence is undeniable to those who experience it, leaving an impression that is both haunting and humbling. Even during the daytime, the monuments seem to radiate a quiet energy. The sunlight reflects off the polished granite, highlighting engraved names and dates, while shadows cast by nearby trees create shifting patterns that give the impression of movement. Some visitors have felt compelled to speak aloud or leave offerings, a simple gesture of acknowledgement and respect before continuing on the trails. The monuments, though inanimate, seem to demand recognition of the lives they commemorate and the spirits that may still linger nearby. Over the years, countless reports have emerged of cameras malfunctioning or capturing inexplicable orbs and streaks of light near the monuments. While skeptics attribute these phenomena to lens flares or environmental factors, standing solemnly behind the monument or near the gravestones, these images, whether coincidental or paranormal, have fueled the legend of the haunted monuments. Drawing curious visitors, historians, and ghost hunters alike, the monuments of River Raisin are more than memorials. They are conduits to a past that refuses to remain silent. The Raisin Brigade Monument, and others like it, serve as a bridge between the living and the dead, a place where the courage, sacrifice, and sorrow of the fallen can still be sensed. Walking among them is an exercise in reflection, history, and the uncanny awareness that some energies linger long after their mortal bodies have returned to the earth. As night falls across the battlefield, the monuments stand as steadfast witnesses. The air grows colder, the shadows deeper, and the faintest echoes of footsteps and whispers drift across the fields. For those willing to listen, the stones tell a story of bravery, tragedy, and a haunting presence that endures. Each step taken near the Raisin Brigade Monument is a step into history, and perhaps into the lingering world of spirits who have yet to find peace. The monuments demand attention, not just as relics of the past, but as silent guardians of a legacy, both tragic and profound. A haunting reminder that even in stone, the echoes of human lives can never truly be silenced. Among the rolling fields and quiet riverbanks of River Raisin National Battlefield Park, the air often carries a weight beyond the natural. Beneath the rustle of leaves and the gentle flow of the river, there are whispers of a past that refuses to stay buried. Visitors and park staff alike have reported sightings of figures in period military uniforms. Phantom soldiers who move with a deliberate calm, yet exude an undeniable presence. These apparitions, some claim, are the spirits of those who fought and fell during the Battle of Frenchtown and the River Raisin massacre, forever tethered to the land where their lives were violently interrupted. The first encounters often begin subtly. A hiker walking along a shaded trail may feel an unexpected stillness, as though the forest has hushed itself in anticipation. The usual sounds of birds or wind seem to fade, replaced by a strange, almost imperceptible rhythm, the echo of boots on the earth. When the figure appears, it is often partially obscured by trees or mist, a silhouette in the distance, rigid and deliberate. Observers describe soldiers standing at attention, gazing over the fields or toward the river, as if surveying a landscape that has not changed since their final moments. Unlike typical ghost stories, these phantoms often seem aware of the living. Some visitors report that when they speak softly or step closer, the figures pause, tilt their heads, or even nod in acknowledgement. It is as though the spirits recognize the attention and respect shown by those who tread the battlefield. Whispered words have been heard on rare occasions, sometimes a simple thank you or a command in a long-forgotten dialect. These interactions, fleeting and delicate, leave witnesses both shaken and awed, a tangible link to the human experiences that unfolded here over 2 centuries ago. The phantom soldiers appear in different locations across the park, but the riverbanks and open fields are frequent sites of sightings. In the early morning fog, figures are said to emerge from the haze, walking silently along the water's edge. Their reflections shimmer on the river's surface, distorted yet eerily accurate, giving the impression that the past and present are overlapping for a brief, impossible moment. On the trails, some have glimpsed soldiers marching in formation, their movements methodical and precise, replaying patterns learned in life, repeating actions that time and death cannot erase. Sightings are not confined to the visual realm. Many who have experienced these phantoms speak of sudden shifts in temperature, inexplicable chills that ripple across the skin, or a weight of presence that presses on the chest. The sensations are not inherently threatening. Rather, they convey a solemnity, a lingering sense of duty and remembrance. Some visitors feel the urge to stop, to bow their heads, or remain perfectly still, sensing that any sudden movement could break a fragile connection to the past. The apparitions vary in detail, depending on the witness. Some report soldiers with starkly visible uniforms, muskets slung across the shoulder, buttons glinting faintly in the muted sunlight. Others see only shadowy outlines, features blurred as if the spirit is attempting to maintain some separation from the living world. Occasionally, soldiers are seen carrying out the duties of the living, adjusting imaginary gear, checking positions, or standing watch over invisible companions. These repeated actions suggest residual hauntings, echoes of lives interrupted so violently that the souls remain bound to the land, unable to move on. There are accounts of closer encounters that defy conventional explanation. One visitor recounted standing near the river at dusk when a soldier appeared within arm's reach, silently extending a hand in salute. The witness froze, unable to move, before the figure gradually faded into the mist, leaving a lingering warmth and a strange, comforting presence. Others have felt a hand brush against their shoulder, or the tap of a rifle, but on the ground, respectful gestures that speak of discipline, acknowledgement, or perhaps gratitude for recognition from the living. Many experiences with the phantom soldiers occur during the quieter hours, particularly at dawn or twilight, when the park is largely empty. The fading light and long shadows create an atmosphere where the boundary between past and present feels thin. Shadows lengthen across the fields, and distant trees cast shapes that seem unnervingly human. In these moments, it is as if the soldiers emerge, not just to be seen, but to interact with the living in small, fleeting ways that honor their memory and maintain a silent vigil over the battlefield. The phenomenon of phantom soldiers is consistent enough to attract historians, ghost hunters, and curious visitors alike. Cameras, audio recorders, and personal accounts all provide fragmented evidence of their presence. Orbs of light, shadowy forms, and unexplained sounds have been documented near areas of high activity, particularly around monuments and along old troop paths. Whether one interprets these sightings as spiritual, psychological, or a convergence of both, the impact on those who witness them is profound, leaving an indelible impression of history made tangible in the present. The soldiers, in their spectral form, carry with them the weight of their experiences, the fear, the courage, and the loyalty that defined them in life. Their silent march across the battlefield reminds visitors of the human cost of war and the lives abruptly ended in a struggle for survival and freedom. Yet, despite the horror they endured, these spirits often appear dignified and measured, embodying the discipline and honor that characterize their military service. In witnessing them, living visitors are offered a connection to the past that is intimate, immediate, and deeply moving. For those walking the trails of River Raisin National Battlefield Park, the phantom soldiers are more than eerie apparitions. They are living reminders of sacrifice, a haunting testament to the history written on these fields. Their presence transforms the landscape from mere scenery into a portal of remembrance. Each fleeting glimpse, every unexplained sound or chill, serves as a bridge between centuries, offering a momentary communion with those who fought, suffered, and continue to linger in the places they once called home. The phantom soldiers of River Raisin do not strike fear in the traditional sense. Instead, they inspire reflection, reverence, and an awareness of the enduring imprint left by history. They are reminders that while life may end, the echoes of courage and tragedy can persist, inhabiting the spaces where memory, history, and spirit converge. Those who visit the park and encounter these spectral figures leave with a sense of awe, a touch of melancholy, and an understanding that some stories and some souls never truly vanished. They march silently, eternally, through the fields they once defended. Among the serene landscapes of River Raisin National Battlefield Park, an unsettling phenomenon persists, one that has both intrigued and unnerved visitors for decades. While the open fields, riverbanks, and monuments stand as solemn reminders of battles fought and lives lost, it is the disembodied voices that capture the attention of those willing to listen. These sounds, often faint and ethereal, seem to echo through the trees and across the frozen fields, carrying with them the weight of centuries past. Unlike the visible apparitions or spectral figures, the voices are intangible, yet they evoke a profound sense of presence, as though the past itself has found a way to speak once more. Rangers and longtime visitors have reported hearing conversations in languages that are unfamiliar, carried on the wind with a clarity that is both startling and unnerving. The voices do not always come from one direction. They seem to surround those who hear them, weaving through the trees, across the river, and over the open plains. Some describe the tones as urgent, almost commanding, while others are soft and sorrowful, like echoes of lamentations that have persisted for centuries. These auditory experiences often occur in isolation, with no other human presence nearby, lending an eerie authenticity to the phenomenon. Some believe that the disembodied voices belong to the Native American warriors who fought alongside the British during the Battle of Frenchtown. These men, skilled in strategy and intimate with the land, suffered and died here, their lives abruptly ended by conflict and circumstance. While their words have been lost to history, the spirits who linger may still carry fragments of communication, memories etched into the very air of the battlefield. Listeners have reported hearing what sounds like instructions, calls, or warnings in languages they cannot recognize, as though the voices are tied to the duties and movements that these warriors performed in life. The experiences of hearing the voices often come during moments of stillness. Visitors recount standing silently along the riverbank, the quiet interrupted by whispers that seem to come from every direction. The rustling of leaves may amplify the effect, turning a gentle breeze into the illusion of murmured conversation. At times, the voices seem to respond to the presence of the living, pausing or changing tone as if aware that someone is listening. These interactions, subtle and fleeting, are enough to leave a lasting impression, instilling a sense of awe and an almost reverent fear in those who encounter them. It is not just the content of the voices that is remarkable, but their physical effect on those who hear them. Sudden chills often accompany the sounds, a cold that rises from the ground and sweeps across the skin. The air may feel heavier, more charged, as though the land itself is alive with memory. Some witnesses describe a tingling sensation at the nape of the neck or the feeling of being watched. Sensations that fade only when they leave the area. Even skeptics, unprepared for such experiences, have reported leaving the park with an altered sense of the space, as though something unseen has imprinted itself upon their consciousness. The disembodied voices are often reported near locations where intense historical events took place, particularly along the river where soldiers once gathered, fought, and fell. Here, the land bears the marks of struggle, sacrifice, and grief, a combination that may have left an enduring impression on the spiritual fabric of the area. Visitors who pause in these spots often describe an overwhelming sensation of history pressing in, a kind of auditory connection to lives long extinguished yet not forgotten. The voices, though indecipherable, convey emotion and intention, hinting at stories and experiences that have remained hidden for over 2 centuries. Some accounts go further, describing partial phrases or words that seem to pierce the veil of time. A visitor may catch a word repeated in a soft, rhythmic cadence, or hear a sequence of syllables that mimic commands or names. Others report hearing low, melodic chants that rise and fall like a distant song, their meaning lost but their presence undeniable. These vocal manifestations are unpredictable, sometimes appearing for only a few moments, then fading as quickly as they arrived, leaving behind a quiet tension that lingers long after the encounter. Researchers and paranormal investigators have documented the phenomenon with audio equipment, capturing faint sounds that resemble conversations or chants when no other source is present. While environmental explanations wind, wildlife, or echoes are often suggested, the consistency and specificity of the reports make many believe that something beyond natural explanation is at work. The voices, disembodied yet persistent, serve as a bridge to the past, a conduit through which the experiences of those who died here may still be heard, however fragmentary or obscure. For many, encountering the disembodied voices at River Raisin is both unsettling and humbling. The sounds remind visitors that the past is not confined to books or plaques. It is alive in the very air, in the soil, and in the quiet spaces where history unfolded. The voices are a testament to the lives of soldiers and warriors, both American and Native American, whose existence and struggles were violently interrupted. Through these auditory echoes, the battlefield continues to communicate with the living, offering a connection to the sorrow, courage, and humanity of those who once walked these grounds. Ultimately, the disembodied voices of River Raisin National Battlefield Park transform the experience of visiting the site from passive observation to active listening. They are reminders that history is not merely something we study. It is something we can sense, something that resonates through time in ways both subtle and profound. For those who pause to hear, the whispers of the past are ever present, carrying with them the weight of memory, the echoes of lives lost, and the haunting reminder that the spirits of the fallen have never truly left the land they once defended. River Raisin National Battlefield Park is a place steeped in history, sacrifice, and lingering echoes of the past. Visitors come to walk the fields, follow the trails, and reflect on the tragic events that unfolded here during the Battle of Frenchtown and the subsequent River Raisin massacre. Yet amid the natural beauty of the park, there exists an unsettling phenomenon that many encounter: sudden, unexplained cold spots. These chilling areas are reported across the park, particularly near the river and around the monuments, where the memories of those who perished are most concentrated. The experience often begins subtly. A visitor may feel a sudden drop in temperature, the warm air around them replaced by a sharp, penetrating chill. On a sunny summer day, when the air should be comfortably warm, the cold can seem impossible, wrapping around the body like an invisible cloak. Some describe it as a pressure in the chest or a shiver that runs from the head to the toes, a sensation that cannot be attributed to wind or shade. The change is immediate and localized, leaving observers searching for a logical explanation, yet there is none. Cold spots are frequently accompanied by an overwhelming sense of unease. It is as though the very air carries a consciousness, observing every movement. Many who have experienced these sudden drops in temperature report a feeling of unseen eyes upon them, a presence that is both watchful and insistent. The sensation is subtle but powerful, enough to cause some visitors to pause, turn, or even step back. The cold is more than physical. It carries emotional weight, a resonance of the suffering and fear that occurred here centuries ago. Locations near the river are particularly notorious. The water, flowing quietly across the landscape, seems to attract an intensity of presence. Visitors strolling along the banks have described the sudden chill that hits just as they approach the edge of the river, as though the spirits of the fallen are drawn to the place where many met their end. Some have reported hearing faint whispers over the gurgling of the river, subtle yet distinct, in languages they do not understand. These auditory phenomena often accompany the cold, heightening the sensation that the land itself is alive with memory and observation. Monuments scattered throughout the battlefield, including the Raisin Brigade Monument, are also frequent sites of cold spots. The stones, etched with names and dates, seem to radiate an energy that is palpable to the living. Visitors have recounted feeling a chilling draft as they approach the monuments, a sudden awareness of the soldiers who gave their lives here. The cold is not always constant. It can vanish just as quickly as it appears, leaving only a lingering sense of awe, fear, and reverence. Many who experience it describe a sensation that the spirits of the fallen are reaching out, reminding the living that they have not been forgotten. The cold spots are often unpredictable, appearing without warning and in areas that appear ordinary by day. A trail that feels warm and sunlit can, in an instant, become enveloped in frigid air, causing goosebumps and a momentary panic. These occurrences are frequently reported by those walking alone, amplifying the sense of isolation and vulnerability. Even groups can experience the phenomenon, though individual reactions may vary. One person may feel the chill strongly, while another nearby feels only a faint drop in temperature, nothing at all suggesting that the experience is as personal as it is paranormal. Many theories attempt to explain these cold spots. Skeptics suggest natural causes such as air currents, changes in elevation, or moisture from the river. Others propose that the phenomenon may be psychological, triggered by the awareness of the battlefield's tragic history. Yet the consistency of reports over decades, from visitors, rangers, and even researchers, points to something beyond simple explanation. The cold spots seem to be tied to the intensity of emotion concentrated in specific locations. The riverbanks, where soldiers fell, the monuments, where their names are immortalized, and the open fields where battle cries once pierced the air. Some visitors have noted additional sensations along with the cold, a tingling on the skin, a pressure on the shoulders, or the feeling of being followed can accompany these drops in temperature. Occasionally, there are fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures, blurred and indistinct, that vanish as quickly as they appear. The cold seems to act as a herald, signaling the presence of spirits who are invisible to the eye, but perceptible through sensation. Those who are sensitive to energy often describe the experience as a physical connection to the past, a moment when history becomes tangible and immediate. The phenomenon has been experienced both during the day and at night. In the dim light of dawn or dusk, the cold spots are often more pronounced, creating a heightened atmosphere of tension and reverence. At night, the combination of darkness, silence, and sudden chills can be particularly disorienting, making the battlefield feel like a living presence, attentive to those who walk upon it. Visitors often describe the experience as humbling, a reminder that the spirits of those who fought and died here are not entirely absent. They are watching, lingering, and perhaps even guiding the living through the landscape. The cold spots at Raisin National Battlefield Park are more than simple drops in temperature. They are echoes of trauma, grief, and courage, the lingering imprints of lives cut short in battle. They serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone, that the energy of human experience can persist in ways that defy scientific understanding. For those who encounter these chilling phenomena, the experience is unforgettably physical, emotional, and spiritual connection to the soldiers who remain, in some form, ever present across the fields, by the river, and near the monuments that commemorate them. Walking the battlefield, visitors may feel the warmth of the sun on their faces, yet the cold spots remind them that history is never entirely at rest. The sensations are fleeting, yet lasting in their impact, leaving those who experience them with a mixture of awe, respect, and a lingering sense of mystery. In the cold, one can sense the presence of those who once stood where we now walk, their stories etched not only in stone but in the very air itself. It is a haunting reminder that some histories are not just told, they are felt. In the chill that creeps through the body and the quiet, watchful gaze of the past that never leaves. As darkness descends over Raisin National Battlefield Park, a peculiar and unsettling phenomenon often makes itself known. Among the whispering trees, the rolling fields, and the quiet riverbanks, visitors and park staff alike have reported the strange flickering of lights, a phenomenon that defies ordinary explanation. What appears at first to be a simple malfunction of a flashlight or lantern often reveals itself to be something far more enigmatic, a subtle, eerie presence that seems intent on making itself felt. These flickering lights are not random. They appear in specific locations, often where the weight of history is most concentrated, near monuments, along old trails, and close to the river where soldiers once fell. Park rangers, who patrol the grounds in the evenings, frequently recount experiences that border on the inexplicable. Flashlights that have functioned perfectly during the day suddenly dim, flicker, or even go out entirely when they approach certain areas of the park. At first, the technical issues might be attributed to dead batteries or electrical interference, yet the consistency of these occurrences over time defies logical explanation. The lights often flicker in patterns, sometimes brief stutters, sometimes rhythmic pulses that suggest intent rather than accident, as if someone or something is attempting to communicate using this unusual medium. Visitors have also reported similar phenomena. Hikers and history enthusiasts exploring the park in the fading light of dusk often notice their own handheld lights wavering unpredictably. A flashlight may flicker momentarily and then regain its brightness, only to dim again seconds later. In some cases, cameras and phones capturing the landscape have recorded faint, unexplained glows or streaks of light, adding a visual dimension to the mysterious occurrences. Those who experience it often report a feeling of being watched or guided, a subtle awareness that they are not alone. Some interpret the flickering lights as the work of mischievous spirits, playful remnants of the soldiers and warriors who once inhabited these grounds. The idea is that the energy of the fallen, frustrated and restless, can manifest in subtle ways, using light as a form of interaction with the living. Witnesses sometimes describe the sensation as almost conversational, the lights responding to movement, presence, or even verbal acknowledgement. A flashlight may dim when a person approaches, then brighten when they stop, creating an unsettling rhythm that feels alive, purposeful, and intimately connected to the past. Others suggest that the flickering is more than playful, it is a form of communication. The areas where these phenomena are most commonly reported correspond closely with locations of intense historical activity. Near the Hazen Brigade Monument, for instance, lights are often observed to flicker, as though drawing attention to the soldiers commemorated there. Along the riverbank, where countless lives were lost during the battle and the massacre, lights seem to dance across the water or falter when one approaches the edge, as if signaling the presence of those who remain tied to the land. The rhythmic nature of some flickers has even led paranormal researchers to speculate that the lights are responding to specific stimuli, movement, proximity, or even recognition of the living who tread carefully on the sacred grounds. The phenomenon can be both subtle and unsettling. Some visitors report a fleeting strobe-like effect, where their flashlight or lantern pulses rapidly for a few seconds before returning to normal. Others recount seeing multiple flashes in the distance, off the trail or near trees, which cannot be accounted for by natural sources. In certain instances, the flickering appears accompanied by cold spots or sudden sensations of unease, as if multiple types of paranormal energy converge in the same locations. These experiences are often so convincing that they inspire awe and fear simultaneously, leaving witnesses deeply aware of the park's haunting past. The flickering lights are not confined to portable light sources. On rare occasions, park staff have reported that fixed lights, such as lamps along pathways or near monuments, seem to dim and brighten unpredictably. Electrical systems have been checked repeatedly, with no technical explanation found. The timing, locations, and patterns of these occurrences suggest an intelligence at work, rather than coincidence. Those who experience it often describe the lights as both a warning and an invitation, a signal to pay attention to the history, the memory, and the spirits who continue to inhabit the park. The phenomenon is also emotionally charged. Many who encounter flickering lights report a sudden rush of awareness, a heightened sensitivity to the surrounding environment. Footsteps seem louder, the wind sharper, and the air heavier. Some feel a presence brushing past, fleeting yet unmistakable, as if a soldier or observer from the past is standing beside them, invisible yet vigilant. The lights become a bridge, linking the living with those who walked, fought, and died here centuries ago. Each flicker, each dimming and brightening, is a reminder that history is not confined to the pages of books or plaques. It is alive, pulsing in the world around us. For some, the experience is brief but unforgettable. For others, it becomes a moment of reflection and respect. Visitors have reported pausing before monuments or riverbanks, watching their flashlight flicker in gentle rhythms, feeling a strange sense of acknowledgement from unseen observers. The lights, silent yet expressive, seem to convey gratitude, warning, or remembrance, a way for spirits to maintain a subtle connection with the living. They remind us that the battlefield is more than grass and stone. It is a living memory, imprinted with the courage, sacrifice, and lingering presence of those who remain beyond the veil of time. Ultimately, the flickering lights of River Raisin National Battlefield Park serve as both a mystery and a message. They are a haunting, tangible manifestation of history, a spectral signature left by those who have not fully departed. For those who encounter them, the experience is both chilling and profound, a moment when the past reaches out, using the simplest tools of the living world to remind us that the spirits of the fallen remain ever watchful, ever present, and ever haunting these sacred grounds. Even beyond the open fields and riverbanks of River Raisin National Battlefield Park, the presence of the past lingers in ways both subtle and startling. The Visitor Center, a hub for tourists and historians seeking to understand the battles that unfolded here, has proven to be no exception to the park's unsettling phenomena. While it stands as a modern structure designed to educate and commemorate, the building itself seems touched by the spirits of those who never left the battlefield. Staff and visitors alike have reported experiences that challenge reason and invite a deeper contemplation of the lingering echoes of history. One of the most commonly reported phenomena within the visitor center is the movement of objects. Pens, pamphlets, and display items have been known to shift from one spot to another without explanation. A display case might rattle gently, or a chair might be nudged from its original position, leaving staff perplexed. These movements are usually subtle, yet they carry an unmistakable presence, as if the spirits of the fallen are testing the boundaries between the living and the inanimate. Some staff describe a sensation that the objects are being guided, not haphazardly moved, but intentionally nudged, as if to attract attention or communicate. Unexplained noises are another frequent occurrence. Soft thuds, footsteps in empty hallways, and the creaking of doors have all been reported, often when no one else is present. Visitors occasionally hear the faint murmur of voices, fragments of conversation that fade before comprehension is possible. The sounds seem to emerge from the walls themselves, echoing through corridors and exhibition rooms. While some attempt to rationalize these noises as structural or mechanical, The consistency and timing suggest something beyond ordinary explanation. Many who experience it report a sensation that these sounds are deliberately orchestrated, a subtle reminder of the lives that once permeated the land, now preserved in history. A pervasive feeling of being watched is perhaps the most unsettling phenomenon for those inside the visitor center. Staff often describe moments when, despite being alone, they feel an invisible gaze upon them, a presence lingering just beyond the edge of perception. It is not threatening in an overt sense, but heavy with expectation and remembrance, as if the spirits are ensuring that the stories of their lives and sacrifices are not forgotten. Visitors sometimes share the same sensation, glancing around the room or down hallways, only to find no one there. The effect is both eerie and humbling, leaving those who experience it with a heightened awareness of the history that the visitor center seeks to honor. Several accounts describe more interactive experiences, where the spirits seem to engage with the living in small but unmistakable ways. Pens have been lifted as if an invisible hand had picked them up. Chairs have been slightly rotated. Even lights have flickered inexplicably, as if to acknowledge a person's presence. On rare occasions, staff report hearing clear phrases or whispers words of gratitude, warnings, or fragments of conversation that vanish when anyone tries to respond. These fleeting moments suggest that the spirits of the soldiers are not merely lingering. They are aware, responsive, and perhaps even protective of the history being observed and preserved. The visitor center's exhibits, which include artifacts, maps, and detailed accounts of the Battle of Frenchtown and the Raisin massacre, appear to serve as focal points for these phenomena. Staff often notice the most activity near displays that commemorate particularly tragic or significant moments in the battlefield's history. It is as if the intensity of the events themselves has left a residual energy, drawn to these representations of memory and sacrifice. For visitors, this can be a profound experience. Standing among artifacts touched by the past, hearing the faintest echoes of voices, feeling the subtle cold of an unseen presence, and sensing the weight of countless lives lost in the fields beyond. Even everyday tasks in the visitor center have been affected. Staff recount instances where objects they set down have vanished only to reappear in entirely different locations. A binder might slide from a counter to the floor without explanation, or a book may be found open to a page that seems eerily relevant to recent events. In these moments, there is an undeniable sense that the spirits are attempting to communicate, reminding those present that the battlefield and its history are alive, even within the walls of a modern structure. Visitors often come expecting to learn about history, to read plaques and view artifacts, but many leave with a sense of something more intangible. The atmosphere within the visitor center can shift in an instant. A warm, quiet space suddenly punctuated by a cold draft, the faintest echo of footsteps, or the sensation of unseen eyes following a tour group. Those attuned to such occurrences find the experiences reverent rather than frightening, a connection to the human stories behind the stone monuments and open fields. The spirits are not malevolent. They are witnesses, observers, and guardians of the past, ensuring that the sacrifices of the fallen are remembered. For some, the experiences in the visitor center are deeply emotional. The combination of tangible artifacts and paranormal activity creates a bridge between the present and the past, a place where history is felt as much as it is understood. A visitor might reach for a display, glance down a hallway, and feel the inexplicable sensation that someone or something is acknowledging their presence. The effect is humbling, reinforcing the understanding that the lives commemorated at Raisin National Battlefield Park were not mere footnotes in history, but real human experiences marked by courage, suffering, and tragedy. The haunted nature of the visitor center serves as a reminder that the battlefield is never confined to the open air. History seeps into every corner, every hallway, and every exhibit, leaving traces that defy explanation. The spirits of Raisin seem to have followed the living indoors, unwilling to leave behind the land where their lives were forever altered. Whether through flickering lights, moving objects, disembodied voices, or the sensation of being watched, the visitor center becomes a portal to the past, allowing visitors and staff alike to experience history in a way that is immediate, immersive, and profoundly human. Those who enter the Haunted Visitor Center often leave with more than facts and artifacts. They leave with a sense of connection to the soldiers who fought and died here, a visceral reminder that history is never truly gone. The spirits of River Raisin are ever present, watching, guiding, and reminding us that the echoes of bravery, sacrifice, and loss are woven into every corner of the park. In this quiet, modern space, the past whispers, moves, and lingers, ensuring that the legacy of the battlefield is felt as much as it is remembered. Flowing quietly through River Raisin National Battlefield Park, the River Raisin appears serene and unassuming at first glance, reflecting sunlight and the lush greenery that lines its banks. Yet beneath its placid surface, there are whispers of dark secret echoes, of bloodshed and loss that have permeated the waters for over 2 centuries. The river, so central to the battlefield, is more than a geographical feature. It is a living testament to the horrors of the past, and many who encounter it sense an energy that is at once haunting and incomprehensible. Local lore has long suggested that the river serves as a conduit for spirits. The waters are believed to carry the souls of those who died during the Battle of Frenchtown and the River Raisin massacre, guiding them toward the afterlife or anchoring them to the place of their untimely demise. Some say that the river does not distinguish between friend or foe. The fallen soldiers, Native American warriors, and civilians who perished are all drawn into its spectral current, their presence lingering in ways both subtle and terrifying. Visitors have often described a heavy sensation when standing near the river's edge, a feeling that the water itself is aware of their presence, watching and waiting. The river has a reputation for unusual activity. Fishermen and park visitors have reported experiences that defy explanation. Lines are tugged by unseen forces, boats drift slightly without wind or current, and the water seems to shift beneath them in unnatural ways. Some describe feeling a sudden pull toward the center of the river, as if invisible hands beneath the surface are trying to claim them. These incidents are fleeting but intense, leaving witnesses shaken and profoundly aware of the river's unseen depths. Perhaps most unsettling are the accounts of the river replaying the horrors of battle. Those who spend quiet moments along its banks sometimes claim to hear the distant echoes of gunfire, screams, and the clash of steel. The sounds are not loud enough to startle those outside the park, but they are unmistakable to those who pause and listen. Some have even reported glimpsing shadowy forms moving beneath the water, figures indistinct yet unmistakably human, as if the river itself retains a memory of the bloodshed it witnessed. This sense of the water as a living archive of suffering imbues the river with a presence that is both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. Visitors walking along the riverbanks often experience sudden chills, even on warm days. The air grows thick and heavy, as if infused with the energy of the fallen. Some describe the sensation of being watched, or of faint whispers carried on the breeze, unintelligible yet full of emotion. The river, in these moments, feels less like a body of water and more like a sentient entity, one that remembers and reacts, tethered to the lives that were abruptly ended on its shores. The river's dark secrets extend beyond mere sensation. Objects left near its edge have been known to shift mysteriously, move slightly, or disappear entirely, only to reappear in unexpected places. Boats anchored in seemingly calm waters have occasionally drifted without explanation, despite anchors and no discernible current. Even wildlife in the area behaves oddly near certain stretches, with birds avoiding the water's edge or fish appearing in unnatural patterns. To those attuned to the history of River Raisin, these phenomena are reminders that the river is not merely a backdrop for history, it's an active participant in it, holding echoes of the past in its depths. Accounts from fishermen are particularly chilling. On quiet mornings, some report lines being yanked with force, only to find no fish on the hook. Others have described seeing shadowy forms rise briefly above the water, vanishing before they can be fully identified. A few have reported feeling an almost irresistible pull, a sensation of being drawn toward the river. as though the water itself longs to reclaim them. These experiences, though rare, contribute to the sense that the River Raisin is a boundary between the living and the dead, a liminal space where the past and present converge in unsettling ways. The river is also central to stories of mourning and remembrance. Visitors have sometimes described seeing ghostly silhouettes along the banks, figures that appear to be soldiers staring into the water, perhaps searching for comrades lost in battle. These apparitions are silent, yet their presence is heavy with emotion. It is as though the river has preserved not only the memories of their deaths, but also the grief, loyalty, and camaraderie that defined their lives. Those who witness these figures often leave with a profound sense of humility, recognizing the magnitude of the sacrifices made here, and the enduring connection between the water and the spirits it holds. Scholars, historians, and paranormal investigators alike have documented anomalies along the river. Audio recordings occasionally capture faint splashes or ripples, when no wind or wildlife could account for them. Cameras sometimes reveal inexplicable mist-like shapes hovering over the water. Even the patterns of light on the river at dawn and dusk can appear distorted, reflecting forms that seem out of place or out of time. These observations support the notion that the River Raisin is not only a geographical landmark, but a spiritual repository, one that continues to interact with the living in subtle, haunting ways. Ultimately, the River Raisin embodies the complex intersection of history, memory, and the supernatural. Its waters are not just a reminder of the battles that occurred, but a living witness to the lives that were lost and the stories that remain untold. Fishermen, hikers, and park staff who encounter its mysteries often leave with a profound awareness that the river is more than water. It is a keeper of secrets, a conduit for restless spirits, and a mirror reflecting the horrors and sacrifices of the past. In its depths and along its banks, the echoes of tragedy persist, ensuring that the legacy of the battlefield remains tangible, haunting, and unforgettable. Standing at the river's edge, one cannot help but feel the weight of history pressing down, the pull of the water, and the presence of those who have never truly left. The River Raisin, serene yet alive with memory, is a reminder that some stories are written not just in books or on plaques, but in the very essence of the world around us. It is a river that remembers, a river that mourns, and a river whose dark secrets continue to ripple through time. Walking the trails of River Raisin National Battlefield Park is often a serene experience. The fields stretch wide, the river winds gracefully, and the trees provide a quiet canopy under which history feels alive. Yet for many who wander these grounds, there is an unsettling companion, the sense of an unseen presence, but it is profoundly felt. Visitors describe a weight in the air, a feeling that someone or something is watching, following, and sometimes interacting with them in ways both subtle and deeply unnerving. The experiences often begin with the faintest sensations. A hiker may feel a gentle brush against a shoulder, or the lightest graze of a hand along their arm, only to turn and find no one there. The feeling is fleeting, almost imperceptible, yet it carries an unmistakable weight. Some interpret it as the lingering energy of soldiers and warriors who perished during the Battle of Frenchtown and the River Raisin massacre, their spirits tethered to the land by the trauma and violence that claimed their lives. Others simply feel watched, a sensation that grows as they proceed along the trails, never quite disappearing, no matter how many turns they make. Footsteps are among the most commonly reported signs of the unseen presence. Visitors walking alone often hear the unmistakable sound of boots crunching on gravel or the soft slap of shoes against dirt trails, following them even when the path behind is empty. The sound can be steady or sporadic, sometimes keeping pace perfectly, sometimes lagging just behind. When they stop to investigate, silence returns, broken only by the wind or the rustling of leaves. The dissonance between what is heard and what is seen creates a profound sense of unease, leaving witnesses questioning the nature of reality itself. Some have described the sensation as both physical and psychological. The air seems to thicken, the world narrowing to the trail ahead, the presence lingering just out of sight. A sudden chill may accompany the feeling, as if the unseen entity carries the cold of death itself. The effect is subtle enough to feel natural at first, but over time, patterns emerge. Those who spend long periods on the trails report a consistent awareness of being followed, as if invisible eyes are tracking every step. The more one acknowledges the sensation, the more intense it becomes, hinting at a consciousness behind the presence rather than a mere trick of the imagination. The trails near key battle sites are particularly active in this regard. Visitors have reported stronger sensations along the riverbank, near the Raisin Brigade Monument, and in areas where skirmishes were historically intense. The land itself seems charged with memory, and the presence feels most palpable, where the energy of life, fear, and death was once concentrated. Some hikers describe the presence as patient and watchful, almost protective, lingering near the living as though ensuring that the sacrifices of the past are remembered. Others feel a more restless energy, a spirit still tethered to the world by unfinished business, replaying moments of its violent end. Those who have experienced the unseen presence often report accompanying sensory phenomena. Shadows may flit at the periphery of vision, the air may carry faint whispers or murmurs, and the ground beneath the feet may feel unexpectedly uneven or cold. Some have claimed to smell gunpowder or the faint metallic temps of blood where no evidence of either exists. These sensory hints intensify the sense of connection with the past, creating a visceral, almost tangible experience of history reaching out across time. Park staff have their own encounters, often more subtle but equally unnerving. Rangers patrolling the trails have reported a sensation of someone walking beside them, only to find no companion in the empty woods. Doors in park facilities have been heard opening or closing without cause, and objects occasionally shift as though nudged by unseen hands. While the staff are familiar with the park's history, the sensations remain unsettling, reinforcing the belief that the unseen presence is more than legend. It is an ongoing phenomenon tied to the land itself. Some visitors interpret the presence as a form of communication. It is not overtly hostile, yet it is impossible to ignore. The subtle touches, the following footsteps, and the whispered sounds all suggest a desire to be acknowledged, to have their stories witnessed by those who walk the trails today. Many who have felt the presence report a strange mixture of fear and reverence, a recognition that these spirits are not malevolent but are tied inexorably to the events of the past, their energy lingering in the spaces they once inhabited. The phenomenon of the unseen presence is also deeply personal. Not everyone experiences it in the same way. One visitor may feel only a slight awareness, a brush of cold air, or a faint glance of shadow, while another may feel a fully tangible sense of being accompanied by an invisible entity. This variability adds to the mystery, suggesting that the presence interacts selectively, responding to sensitivity, awareness, or even intent. For some, acknowledging the presence seems to invite further interaction, while for others, denial or distraction seems to reduce the effect, as though the spirits respect the will of the living to remain unaware. Ultimately, the unseen presence at Raisin National Battlefield Park serves as a haunting reminder that history is not confined to textbooks or monuments. The energy of the past lingers in the land, carried by the memories of soldiers, warriors, and civilians who met their end here. Those who walk the trails may feel it brush past their shoulders, hear the soft echo of footsteps, or sense a watchful gaze in the trees and along the riverbank. These experiences invite reflection on the lives lost, the sacrifices made, and the invisible threads that connect the living with the dead. For those willing to acknowledge it, the unseen presence transforms a simple walk through the park into a journey across time itself. Each step along the trails becomes an encounter with the past, each rustle of leaves or sudden chill, a whisper from those who once walked the same ground. The experience is humbling, mysterious, and profoundly human, offering a connection to history that is felt as much as it is understood. In the shadows of River Raisin, the presence of the past is never truly absent. It walks beside you, unseen but ever present, a silent witness to the echoes of lives that shaped the land and continued to linger in its quiet spaces. The trails of River Raisin weave through dense forests, overgrown paths, and quiet clearings, each step echoing stories long forgotten. By day, the park seems serene, alive with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze. But as the sun dips below the horizon, shadows lengthen, and a palpable chill settles among the trees. Those who have dared to explore these trails after dusk speak of an otherworldly presence that lingers in the air. A presence that has earned River Raisin the reputation of being one of the most haunted areas in the state. Hikers and local visitors often report feeling as though they are being followed. Footsteps fall in sync with their own, yet, whenever they turn, there is never anyone there. The sound starts subtly, a soft shuffle on the fallen leaves, or the snap of a twig, and gradually grows louder, echoing through the forest in a rhythm that matches the heartbeat of the listener. For many, it is not merely a sound, but an intrusion, a sense that something unseen is observing, calculating, waiting. Some have felt invisible hands tugging at their clothing. The sensation is brief but unmistakable. A light, cold pull at a sleeve, a nip at a pant leg, sometimes even a touch along the shoulder. The initial reaction is disbelief, but repeated experiences have left hikers shaken. Their stories eerily consistent, despite having encountered these events at different times and locations. These unexplained touches are never violent, but their timing often coincides with the deepest isolation along the trails, moments when the woods are silent except for the hiker's own breath. Shadows play a peculiar role in the legends of River Raisin. Visitors frequently report catching glimpses of figures moving at the edge of their vision. A fleeting silhouette flits between the trees, a dark shape disappearing as soon as attention is focused on it. Some describe humanoid forms, tall and thin, slipping between the trunks, while others see smaller, hunched shapes darting low along the forest floor. The shadows do not linger, yet their brief presence leaves a lasting impression. A cold awareness that something is there, just beyond reach. Watching silently, one particular hiker, Daniel, recounted a terrifying encounter that he said changed his perception of the park forever. He had been walking a less traveled trail at dusk, the sky painted with streaks of orange and purple. The path was quiet, and Daniel noticed a distinct drop in temperature as he moved deeper into the forest. Then came the footsteps. At first he thought it was another hiker, but when he turned, the path was empty. The sounds followed him, moving in tandem with each step he took. Suddenly, a sharp tug at his backpack strap made him stumble. Heart pounding, he scanned the area and saw nothing but swaying branches. He later described an overwhelming feeling of being not just watched, but pursued, not by a person, but by something that existed outside the boundaries of ordinary perception. Others have reported even stranger phenomena. Some hikers have claimed to hear whispers in the wind, faint murmurs calling their names or uttering words in a language they do not understand. These whispers seem to come from all directions at once, surrounding and disorienting the listener. Then there are those who have glimpsed faces among the foliage, pale, expressionless, vanishing when approached. Campers near the trailheads have recounted waking to find their tents disturbed, belongings moved, and footprints circling their campsite despite no signs of human presence. Local lore ties the hauntings of River Raisin to historical events long before the park became a place for recreation. Centuries ago, the area was home to indigenous communities who faced violent displacement and the loss of their ancestral lands. Some believe that the restless spirits of those who perished still wander the trails, seeking recognition, remembrance, or simply retracing the paths of their daily lives. Others suggest that the woods themselves are alive with a consciousness that reacts to human presence, manifesting through sounds, touches, and shadows. Even wildlife seems affected by the haunting. Hikers report that birds fall silent when certain areas are approached, and deer freeze, staring into the trees as if aware of something humans cannot see. The forest, normally vibrant with the sounds of nature, sometimes descends into an unnatural stillness. It is in these moments of quiet that the presence becomes most acute, pressing against the senses in ways that are impossible to ignore. Despite these stories, the trails of River Raisin continue to draw explorers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Some visit to confront the unknown, hoping to capture proof of what lurks in the shadows. Cameras are set up, recordings attempted, and careful notes are taken, but the phenomena are elusive. Footage often shows nothing, recordings capture only ambient sounds, and yet the feelings of dread, the inexplicable chills, and the stories of fleeting shadows persist. The beauty of River Raisin is undeniable, with winding paths, serene streams, and towering trees creating a landscape of natural wonder. Yet the haunting adds an unmistakable tension to this beauty. Each bend in the trail and every shadowed clearing carries the weight of unseen history. Visitors are advised to respect the forest, to tread lightly, and to remain aware that they may not be alone. Those who return from the trails speak of an experience that is both exhilarating and unnerving. The stories they share often begin with hesitation, almost as if recounting them aloud risks summoning the presence again. Footsteps behind, shadows at the edge of vision, and the feeling of being touched by something unseen remain embedded in memory long after leaving the forest. The trails of River Raisin offer more than just a hike. They provide an encounter with the unexplained, a glimpse into a realm where the natural and supernatural intertwine. For those brave enough to walk the haunted trails, there is a sense of entering a space where the past refuses to remain buried. Every rustle of leaves, every sudden draft of wind, every fleeting shadow is a reminder that some places hold memories that do not fade, that the forest itself remembers, and that the spirits of River Raisin may still wander, waiting for the next footsteps to follow. The trails are a place of awe, mystery, and subtle terror, reminder that nature and the supernatural can coexist in ways both beautiful and frightening. The haunted paths of River Raisin continue to draw those willing to face the unknown, leaving them with stories that linger long after they have left the forest. Whispers of the unseen and tales of shadows that refuse to disappear. The battlefield stretches across rolling fields, now quiet and overgrown with wild grasses and the occasional stand of trees. By day, it is a serene place, seemingly untouched by the violence that once scarred its soil. But as darkness falls, an eerie phenomenon begins to emerge, lights that float above the ground, shimmering and moving with an almost unnatural intelligence. Locals and visitors alike have given these strange phenomena many names. But the mysterious lights is what has stuck, for no one has been able to explain their origin or behavior. Witnesses describe the lights as small orbs, glowing in pale shades of white, blue, or amber. They hover silently above the ground, drifting through the night air as if carried by an invisible current. Their movements are erratic, unpredictable, and sometimes alarming. One moment, a light might hover gently over a patch of grass. The next, it darts rapidly across the field, zigzagging as if avoiding something unseen. The lights often appear in groups, forming small constellations of flickering energy, only to scatter suddenly when approached. No one has successfully touched one, and attempts to capture them on camera yield only faint blurs or flashes that vanish upon closer inspection. Those who have witnessed the lights describe a feeling of profound unease mingled with awe. Some say the air grows colder in their presence, carrying a weight of sadness and loss. A few have reported hearing faint whispers, almost like the rustling of voices too distant to comprehend, rising and falling with the movement of the orbs. Others speak of an invisible pull, a subtle tug on the emotions, as if the lights themselves are trying to communicate, or perhaps guide, the observer. The combination of visual beauty and emotional intensity creates an experience that lingers long after the lights have disappeared. Theories about the lights abound, though none have been conclusively proven. Many believe the phenomenon is tied to the battlefield's tragic history. Decades ago, countless soldiers perished here, caught in the chaos of combat, many buried hastily or left unmarked in mass graves. Some locals insist that the lights are the restless spirits of these fallen soldiers, wandering the fields in search of peace. The erratic movements of the orbs, they say, reflect the confusion and fear of those who died here, their souls unable to find rest. One veteran, now elderly, shared his experience with the lights during a quiet night walk. He had returned to the battlefield to pay his respects, flashlight in hand and memories heavy. Suddenly, a cluster of small, glowing orbs appeared, hovering just above the grass. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, but as he watched, the lights moved with an intelligence that defied explanation. He stepped closer, heart pounding, but the orbs scattered like startled fireflies. Standing there in the dark, he felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as though the battlefield itself was alive with the echoes of past suffering. Others recount encounters that are more unsettling than awe-inspiring. Hikers and campers report waking in the middle of the night to find lights hovering near their tents, moving silently as if inspecting them. The lights often vanish when approached, but some leave a lingering feeling of being watched, an invisible presence that refuses to leave. In certain cases, observers have described the lights converging at particular spots in the field, only to vanish simultaneously, leaving a silence so profound it feels almost tangible. Historians and paranormal researchers have tried to study the lights scientifically. Cameras, infrared equipment, and motion sensors have been set up over the years, capturing fleeting flashes, unexplained glows, and occasional streaks of light. Yet every attempt to document the phenomenon fully has failed. Some suggest natural explanations, such as swamp gases or reflections from distant sources. But these theories cannot account for the light's intelligence or the patterns of their movements. Nor do they explain the emotional resonance reported by witnesses, the sense of history and loss that seems inseparable from the experience. The lights have also inspired local folklore. Children growing up near the battlefield are told stories of the wandering soldiers or spirits who appear to remind the living of bravery and sacrifice. On certain anniversaries of historic battles, people gather in small groups to witness the phenomenon, lighting candles and paying tribute to the dead. These gatherings are often accompanied by hushed conversations, prayers, and moments of silent reflection, reinforcing the idea that the lights are not merely visual curiosities, but manifestations of memory and mourning. Despite the fear they may inspire, many visitors feel a strange compulsion to witness the lights. There is a mixture of reverence and thrill, a recognition that the phenomenon is rare and otherworldly. Those who return home often describe a sense of having been touched by something beyond the ordinary, a fleeting connection to the lives and sacrifices of those who came before. Even skeptics leave with stories they cannot fully explain, and a lingering awareness that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. The mysterious lights of the battlefield remain a testament to the past, a glowing reminder of the human cost of war. They drift silently across the fields, untethered by gravity or reason, existing in a liminal space between memory and reality. For those who have witnessed them, the experience is transformative, leaving an indelible impression of wonder and solemnity. Each light, each flicker, seems to carry a message, a fragment of a story that refuses to fade, and in that way, the battlefield remains alive, illuminated not by fire or lamp, but by the spirits that linger still. Walking these fields at night is an experience unlike any other. The cold air bites, the wind rustles through the grass, and the lights appear floating, darting, glowing orbs that defy logic. Some see them as ghosts, some as natural anomalies, but all who encounter them sense that they are witnessing something extraordinary. The mysterious lights continue to dance above the battlefield, untamed, elusive, and hauntingly beautiful. A spectral reminder of sacrifice, memory, and the lingering presence of those who cannot rest. The cemetery adjacent to the old battlefield is small, almost unassuming at first glance. Moss-covered headstones lean at odd angles, some nearly hidden beneath overgrown grass and tangled roots. The air carries a stillness that is almost unnatural, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a crow. By day, it is a solemn place of reflection, but by night, the cemetery transforms into a realm of whispered voices, flickering shadows, and unexplained apparitions, a haunting testament to those who lost their lives on the battlefield. Visitors have long reported strange occurrences among the graves. Some hear soft whispers, indistinct but persistent, as if multiple voices are speaking at once, calling names long forgotten or murmuring prayers that float through the misty air. These whispers are often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature, a chill that seems to settle deep into the bones. Those who pause to listen describe an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if the cemetery itself is mourning, reliving the grief of that fateful day. Shadowy figures are a common sight after dusk. They move silently between the headstones, sometimes standing motionless, other times gliding along the paths in a deliberate, almost reverent manner. Observers often describe these figures as dressed in the attire of soldiers from a bygone era, tattered uniforms, weathered boots, and hats obscuring their faces. In rare instances, the apparitions are seen kneeling at specific graves, heads bowed, hands folded in solemn respect. It is as if these spectral soldiers have returned not to haunt, but to honor their fallen comrades, paying respects long after the battles have ended. One visitor, a history enthusiast named Clara, recounted her experience on a fog-laden evening. She had wandered into the cemetery alone, notebook in hand, hoping to sketch the headstones and capture the atmosphere of the historic site. As she moved among the graves, she noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. Turning slowly, she saw a figure kneeling at one of the older stones, its uniform barely distinguishable in the dim light. She froze, unable to speak or move, as the figure remained still, almost imperceptibly rocking back and forth. When she blinked, it was gone, leaving only the mist and the faint scent of earth and cold stone. Clara described a lingering feeling of having been in the presence of something deeply human, yet undeniably otherworldly. Some encounters are more unsettling. Hikers and late-night visitors have reported hearing footsteps that do not correspond with their own movements, echoing across the cemetery in irregular rhythms. Others have felt cold hands brush past their shoulders or tug gently at their clothing, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. These touches are never aggressive, but their timing and frequency suggest an awareness, as if the spirits are acknowledging the living intruders in their sacred space. Campers who have spent the night near the cemetery sometimes awaken to the faint outlines of figures moving silently among the graves, their presence accompanied by the soft murmur of voices or distant sobs that vanish when approached. Local lore ties the haunting to the tragedy of the battlefield itself. Many of those buried in the cemetery were soldiers who died in the chaos of combat, some buried hastily, others in marked graves that have since weathered with age. It is said that the spirits of these men and women have lingered, unable to move on, compelled to remain close to the site where they fought and fell, as if reliving the moments of bravery, fear, and loss. On such nights, the cemetery becomes a stage for silent ceremonies performed by the unseen, a reenactment of the past that leaves those watching with a profound sense of reverence and unease. Photographers and paranormal investigators have attempted to capture evidence of these occurrences. Some infrared images show heat signatures where no living being is present. Audio recordings occasionally capture whispers or low murmurs that disappear upon playback, leaving listeners with more questions than answers. Despite these efforts, the cemetery retains its mysteries, resisting full explanation and adding to its enduring reputation as a haunted site. Visitors often speak of a palpable atmosphere in the cemetery, a sense that time has folded upon itself, and that past and present coexist in the space between the headstones. Even during daylight, some feel an invisible presence. Those who linger too long report a creeping sensation of melancholy, a quiet pressure of unseen eyes watching, observing, and remembering. Yet the haunting is not solely frightening. Many describe a strange beauty in the apparitions and whispers, a reminder that memory and honor endure beyond death. The figures kneeling at the graves, the faint glow that sometimes surrounds certain headstones. In this way, the cemetery is a bridge between the living and the dead. The haunted cemetery remains a destination for those seeking both history and the paranormal. Visitors come to walk among the headstones, to feel the weight of the past, and to witness the inexplicable phenomena that persist long after the last battle has ended. Each shadow, each whisper, each fleeting figure is a reminder that the stories of those buried here are not forgotten. that their presence lingers in the mist and under the moonlight. Walking through the cemetery at night, one can almost sense the silent rituals taking place. Figures kneel, shadows pass, and whispers float on the wind. The air is heavy with remembrance, and the living are invited to witness a solemn communion with the past. The haunted cemetery is more than a resting place. It is a living memorial, a space where history breathes, spirits linger, and the brave are honored in ways that transcend time. The battlefield stretches across a broad expanse of rolling fields, now quiet and still, the scars of conflict long healed by time but never forgotten. Grass sways gently in the breeze, and wildflowers bloom among the remnants of earthworks and abandoned trenches. By day, the land seems peaceful, almost idyllic, but as night falls, an eerie resonance begins to fill the air, a steady, rhythmic pounding, like distant drums echoing across the terrain. Those who hear it speak of a sound that is both hypnotic and unsettling, a haunting pulse that carries with it the memory of courage, fear, and loss. The phenomenon is known locally as the phantom drums. Witnesses describe the sound as deep and resonant, carrying across fields and through the trees with a clarity that belies its mysterious origin. It begins softly, almost imperceptibly, a low rumble that seems to rise from the soil itself. Gradually, the rhythm becomes more pronounced, each beat distinct and deliberate, echoing as though through time itself. For those standing on the battlefield, the drums are inescapable. They seem to vibrate through the air, through the earth, and even through the bones, leaving a lingering sense of awe and unease. Historians note the drumming was once a tactical tool used during the battle. Soldiers marched to the cadence of the drum, rallied by its commanding beat, and coordinated their movements across the chaos of the battlefield. It was a sound meant to unify, to give order to the confusion of combat, and to inspire courage in men facing overwhelming odds. But today, the drumming occurs when no living hand is present. It is as though the battlefield itself has remembered the rhythm, replaying the martial pulse long after the soldiers have gone. Many who have heard the phantom drums describe a range of physical and emotional reactions. Some report chills that run down the spine, accompanied by a sudden awareness of the darkness around them. Others feel a sense of exhilaration, as if they are standing amidst history, connected to the bravery and sacrifice of those who fought here. Several visitors have claimed that the drumming seems to respond to their movements, growing louder as they approach the center of the field, fading when they retreat, a sound both alive and sentient in its presence. One veteran reenactor recounted an encounter during a late evening visit. He had stayed behind after a historical demonstration to take photographs of the field at sunset. As the last rays of light disappeared, he heard it, a deep, steady thump that seemed to come from all directions at once. Heart racing, he walked toward the sound, but the closer he got, the more it seemed to evade him, echoing across ridges and hollows where no drum could possibly be. He described the sensation of standing in the midst of an unseen army, hearing the cadence that had once guided countless soldiers to their fate. The experience left him both shaken and strangely honored, as if the battlefield had reached out to him across time. Others have reported more unsettling experiences. Hikers and campers near the field speak of the drums waking them from sleep, though no living drummer is present. Some hear additional sounds accompanying the rhythm, the clash of distant steel, muffled shouts, or the low moan of wind through trenches. Occasionally, the drum beats are accompanied by fleeting shadows, figures glimpsed at the edge of vision, marching silently as if replaying the events of the past. The combination of auditory and visual phenomena leaves witnesses questioning the boundary between memory and reality. Researchers and paranormal investigators have tried to capture the phantom drums using modern equipment. Microphones, motion sensors, and audio recorders have recorded deep, pulsing sounds that cannot be traced to any known source. Attempts to pinpoint the origin have failed. The beats seem to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Infrasound studies reveal subtle vibrations in the earth that might explain some sensations. Yet they cannot account for the precision or the persistent rhythmic quality of the drumming. For those who experience it firsthand, scientific explanations offer little comfort. The presence is both felt and heard, undeniable in its immediacy. The phantom drums have inspired local legend. Some claim the rhythm is a tribute from the spirits of fallen soldiers, an eternal march honoring bravery and sacrifice. Others believe it is a warning, a reminder that the cost of war lingers long after the fighting has ended. Folktales describe spectral drummers who appear on foggy nights, standing near ridges or atop hills, beating invisible skins while the sound resonates across the valley. These stories are told and retold at campfires, passed down through generations as both caution and homage. Despite the eerie reputation, the drumming draws visitors rather than repelling them. History enthusiasts, ghost hunters, and those with a fascination for the unexplained come to the field at night, hoping to experience the sound for themselves. Many leave with vivid accounts of the rhythmic echo, the emotional weight of the experience, and the impression that the battlefield, though silent by day, is alive with memory when darkness falls. Walking across the field during one of these nocturnal episodes, it is easy to feel connected to the past. Each beat of the phantom drums carries a fragment of history, a heartbeat of courage and loss that persists through time. The echoes of soldiers marching, the fear and determination carried in every step, seem to merge with the present, creating a space where the living and the dead coexist in a shared rhythm. The phantom drums of the battlefield are more than an auditory phenomenon. They are a bridge between eras, a testament to human endurance, and a haunting reminder that some sounds, once made, never truly fade. They echo across the fields, invisible yet unmistakable, played by unseen hands that honor the past with every beat. For those who hear them, the experience is unforgettable. A journey into history, memory, and the spectral pulse of sacrifice. The battlefield stretches across open fields, dotted with remnants of trenches, crumbling stone walls, and scattered memorials. By day, it is a place of reflection, visited by historians and curious travelers seeking to connect with the past. Yet, as night falls, a more mysterious presence awakens among the grassy plains. Locals and visitors alike speak of apparitions, soldiers appearing seemingly from thin air, marching in formation, or standing solemnly on the fields. They are the disappearing soldiers, caught in a cycle of repetition that continues long after the last battle was fought. Eyewitnesses describe the soldiers as wearing uniforms of a bygone era, their attire tattered and faded with time, yet remarkably detailed in the dim moonlight. They march with precision, boots striking the earth in unison, muskets held firmly in their hands. Occasionally, they pause, as if observing an unseen command, before resuming their spectral routine. The figures often appear in groups, moving across the field in straight lines, retracing the steps of a conflict that left countless lives in its wake. For those who encounter them, the effect is both mesmerizing and unsettling, a vivid glimpse into a moment frozen in history. The most commonly reported experience is the sudden appearance of soldiers on otherwise empty land. One evening, a group of hikers ventured to the battlefield after dusk. As they walked along a worn path, a fog rolled in, thick and unnatural, shrouding the field in a ghostly haze. From within the mist, the sound of boots on the ground emerged, soft at first, then steadily growing louder. Soon, the hikers could make out figures standing at attention, their faces obscured by the shadows. The hikers approached cautiously, only for the soldiers to vanish instantly, leaving the field empty as if nothing had ever been there. The sense of disorientation was profound, accompanied by a deep chill that lingered long after the encounter. Others have witnessed a soldiers mid-battle, caught in the throes of their final moments. Apparitions march into conflict, reload weapons, or duck behind cover, but no injuries or blood accompany their movements. These reenactments are often fragmented, incomplete, replaying only certain moments, as if the battlefield itself selects fragments of memory to replay for those who are present. Observers frequently note that these occurrences are most vivid on nights when the moon is high, or when fog rolls across the fields, amplifying the otherworldly nature of the experience. Local historians speculate that these sightings are residual haunting, echoes of the immense trauma that occurred on the battlefield. The soldiers are believed to be replaying the moments of their final day, their spirits imprinted upon the land itself. Unlike traditional ghosts, these figures do not interact with the living. They march, fight, and fall, as they did centuries ago, oblivious to anyone watching. The repetition suggests that the energy of those moments was so intense that it became embedded in the earth. A perpetual replay of history that continues long after the living have departed. One of the most detailed accounts comes from a young researcher who stayed late to document the battlefield. Ese nocturnal phenomena. Around midnight, a mist began to roll across the field, and he heard the unmistakable sound of soldiers moving. Turning toward the noise, he saw a line of figures marching, their steps synchronized, their presence undeniable. Heart pounding, he moved closer to get a better view, only for the soldiers to dissolve into the fog as if they had never existed. The researcher described a lingering sadness, a sense of witnessing the weight of countless lives lost, replaying in silence for all eternity. Encounters with the disappearing soldiers are not limited to direct sightings. Some report the sound of marching boots where no one is present, the faint clatter of muskets, or the echo of commands drifting across the field. Others claim to feel an invisible presence guiding them, as though the soldier's energy brushes past without revealing itself. The effect can be disorienting, creating a sense that the battlefield is alive, aware of those who walk upon it, and capable of revealing its history at will. Photographers and paranormal investigators have attempted to capture the phenomenon using night vision cameras and long exposure equipment. Many report faint outlines, blurred figures, or streaks of light where the soldiers were last seen. Audio recordings sometimes capture footsteps, shouts, or the sound of commands being called across the field. Despite these attempts, no definitive evidence has ever been produced, leaving the experience largely subjective but no less compelling for those who have witnessed it firsthand. The disappearing soldiers are said to appear most frequently on anniversaries of the battle or on nights when the wind carries the distant echoes of cannon fire and musket shots. Local lore describes them as bound to the land, reliving their final day in an endless loop, caught between history and the present. Some believe that the soldiers are unaware of their ghostly state, trapped in a spectral reenactment of the moments that defined their lives. Others suggest that the phenomenon serves as a reminder for the living, a testament to sacrifice, courage, and the enduring weight of history. Visitors drawn to the battlefield report a mixture of fear, awe, and reverence. To witness the disappearing soldiers is to step into a space where time folds, where the past and present coexist in fleeting glimpses. Each apparition is a reminder of the lives once lived, the battles fought, and the human cost of conflict. Walking among them, one feels the weight of memory pressing against the present, a silent communion with those who have not yet found peace. The disappearing soldiers continue to appear, night after night, year after year, unseen by most, but deeply felt by those who are present. Their presence is a haunting and beautiful testament to the endurance of memory, a spectral performance played out on the fields where history was made. In their marching, standing, and silent actions, they leave a lasting impression that some moments and some souls refuse to be forgotten. The campgrounds lie nestled in a quiet section of the forest, surrounded by towering pines and thick underbrush. By day, the area is serene, with the laughter of families and the crackle of campfires filling the air. Children run along trails, birds chirp overhead, and the scent of pine needles and smoke mingles in the breeze. But as dusk falls, a subtle tension creeps through the sight, an almost imperceptible shift that alerts some campers that something is not quite right. The woods grow unnaturally silent, shadows lengthen and twist, and an overwhelming sense of unease begins to settle over those who remain. Stories of paranormal activity at the campgrounds have circulated for decades. Visitors often report hearing voices when no one else is around. Soft murmurs, whispered names, or laughter that seems too distant and distorted to be human. These sounds are most commonly heard after nightfall, when the campfire burns low and the forest is enveloped in darkness. Campers who investigate often find nothing, the noises disappearing as suddenly as they came. Some describe the whispers as playful at first, almost beckoning, only to turn cold and sinister as the minutes pass. Figures moving among tents are another common experience. Observers often glimpse fleeting shadows darting between the trees or across the campsites, moving with a speed and agility that seem unnatural. At times, campers report seeing humanoid shapes standing still, watching from the edge of the tree line before vanishing when approached. Some figures appear partially transparent, fading into the darkness, leaving only a lingering outline or the impression of eyes staring back. These sightings are never permanent, but the memory of being watched often lingers long after the figure disappears. Many campers have recounted moments of intense dread that defy explanation. While sitting by the fire or lying in their tents, they feel an unseen presence pressing upon them. The sensation is described as a weight, a coldness, or a quiet pressure that makes even the simplest tasks turning on a flashlight. But those who experience it repeatedly begin to accept that something more than nature is at play. One camper, a seasoned outdoors enthusiast named Mark, shared his encounter with the campground spirits. He had been hiking all day and returned to his tent as darkness fell. Around midnight, he was awakened by whispers outside his tent, soft and indistinct. Peering through the mesh, he saw a shadow move between the other tents, stopping momentarily as if observing him. Heart pounding, he unzipped the tent flap and shined his flashlight. But the figure vanished instantly, leaving the area empty and silent. Mark described a chill that seemed to seep into his very bones and an overwhelming certainty that he was not alone. He packed his gear and left the campground before sunrise, unable to shake the feeling of unseen eyes following him. Some encounters are more dramatic. Campers have reported objects being moved while no one is around, a chair shifted from its original place, a backpack knocked to the ground, or even the faint impression of footsteps circling a tent. Electrical devices occasionally malfunction, lights flickering or radios turning on without cause. Pets brought along on camping trips sometimes react with agitation, barking or growling at seemingly empty spaces, adding to the sense that the campground is under watch. Despite the fear, many visitors are drawn to the campgrounds because of the reputation for paranormal activity. Ghost hunters, paranormal enthusiasts, and thrill seekers often arrive with cameras, audio recorders, and night vision equipment, hoping to capture proof of the supernatural. While recordings sometimes capture unexplained sounds, moving shadows, or faint outlines in the dark, conclusive evidence remains elusive. The phenomenon is frustrating to scientists and experts, but compelling to witnesses, who consistently report similar experiences of whispers, figures, and a pervasive sense of unease. Local folklore offers explanations for the haunting. Some believe the campgrounds occupy ground once used by Native American settlements or early pioneers, where tragic events left emotional imprints that manifest as paranormal activity. Others suggest that the spirits of those who passed through the area remain tethered to the land, wandering among the tents and campfires, reliving the moments of their lives in echoes that the living can sense. The stories speak of lost souls, protectors, and occasionally mischievous spirits who interact with campers in subtle but unmistakable ways. Even those who come to the campgrounds for quiet reflection often notice strange phenomena. A soft breeze may carry voices, shadows appear in peripheral vision, or a distant laugh echoes across the empty fields. Campers sometimes wake with a start, certain they have heard someone walking outside, only to find the site deserted. Others report the feeling of being followed while hiking nearby trails, or the sensation of hands brushing past their shoulders when no one is nearby. These experiences vary in intensity, but for many, the result is a lingering unease that prevents them from fully relaxing in the environment. The haunted campgrounds remain a place of fascination and fear. While some leave after brief visits, others embrace the mystery, camping through the night with heightened senses and anticipation. The woods themselves seem alive, attuned to the presence of humans, responding with whispers, shadows, and subtle disturbances that remind visitors of forces beyond the ordinary. Walking through the campground at night is a test of courage. The crackle of a fire, the rustle of leaves, and the distant call of an owl are accompanied by the awareness of being observed. Shadows move in ways that defy natural explanation. Whispers drift through the trees, and the feeling of unseen presences presses in from all sides. The experience is at once unnerving and mesmerizing, a reminder that even in places meant for recreation, the past lingers, memory persists, and spirits may never truly rest. The haunted campgrounds are a testament to the power of the unseen. Each night, the whispers, shadows, and cold touches serve as reminders that the land is alive with stories, grief, and lingering presence. For those who encounter the phenomena, the experience is unforgettable, a mixture of fear, wonder, and an unshakable sense that they are sharing space with forces beyond understanding. Whether skeptic or believer, the campers leave with the undeniable impression that the campground is not just a place to sleep, but a crossroads between the living and the unseen. The battlefield stretches endlessly under the open sky, its rolling hills and scattered trees belying the violence that once tore through the land. By day, it appears peaceful, a place for quiet reflection, where grass grows tall over forgotten trenches and memorials mark the spots where soldiers once fought and fell. Yet, when the sun dips below the horizon and darkness settles across the fields, the air seems to shift. On rare and still nights, the faint but unmistakable sound of galloping hooves echoes across the landscape, a haunting rhythm that carries the weight of history and loss. These are the phantom horses, ethereal remnants of war that continue their eternal ride, long after their riders have vanished. Witnesses describe the phenomenon in vivid, often chilling detail. The sound of hooves begins softly, almost imperceptibly, as if approaching from a great distance. It grows steadily louder, a steady cadence that seems to reverberate through the earth itself. The galloping can be heard across the battlefield, climbing ridges and sweeping through valleys, yet no living creature can be seen. Those who have heard it describe a sense of awe and dread, a realization that the sound carries more than mere rhythm, it carries memory, echoing the courage, fear, and urgency of soldiers long gone. Occasionally, the ghostly horses appear visually, though these sightings are rarer than the sounds themselves. Observers describe dark silhouettes racing across the fields, their forms fleeting and translucent, yet undeniably equine. Some figures are seen in pairs, others alone, galloping with a vigor that defies time, as if the horses are still driven by the urgency of battle. Their coats seem to shimmer faintly in the moonlight, hooves barely touching the earth, manes whipping in a wind that exists only for them. The sight is fleeting, often vanishing the moment a witness tries to approach, leaving only the echo of hooves and a lingering sense of presence. One nighttime visitor, a local historian named Samuel, shared his experience. He had been documenting the battlefield under the full moon, hoping to capture the essence of its history. Around midnight, the quiet of the night was broken by the unmistakable sound of hooves pounding against the soil. Samuel froze, straining to see through the darkness, and then caught sight of four massive horses racing in perfect unison across a distant ridge. They were unaccompanied by riders, yet moved with purpose and precision, as if still carrying soldiers into battle. Samuel described a mixture of fear and wonder, a feeling that he had stumbled upon something timeless, a link between the present and the past. Moments later, the horses vanished, leaving only the sound of wind rustling through the grass and the memory of their passage. The origin of the phantom horses is often tied to the battlefield's history. Horses played a crucial role in the conflicts that once raged here, carrying cavalrymen into combat, transporting supplies, and serving as loyal companions to soldiers facing unimaginable danger. Many perished alongside their riders, succumbing to wounds, exhaustion, or the chaos of battle. It is believed that the spirits of these horses, bound to the land and the memory of their fallen masters, continue to run, replaying the final moments of duty and loyalty with spectral persistence. Accounts vary in intensity. Some witnesses report hearing only the distant pounding of hooves, while others experience the full spectacle, the thunder of gallop, the shimmer of bodies in the moonlight, and the sight of invisible riders mounted on phantom steeds. In some cases, the sound seems to pass directly through the observer, leaving a physical sensation, as if the vibrations of hooves are shaking the very bones. Others describe an overwhelming sense of longing and loss, an emotional weight that follows them long after the horses have disappeared. The phenomenon is not restricted to any one area of the battlefield. Reports have come from ridgetops, valleys, and open fields, suggesting that the haunting is tied to the land itself rather than specific locations. Witnesses note that the sound and sight of phantom horses often occur under particular conditions: quiet nights, still air, and sometimes the presence of fog that cloaks the battlefield in ethereal mist. The combination of natural and supernatural elements heightens the sense of otherworldliness, making the encounter unforgettable. Paranormal researchers and historians alike have attempted to document the phenomenon. Audio recorders capture the rhythmic pounding of hooves, though attempts to pinpoint a source are futile. Cameras occasionally register fleeting shadows or blurred shapes, but no clear images emerge. Skeptics suggest echoes, wildlife, or imagination. Yet the consistency and emotional intensity of reports across decades lend credibility to the experiences. For those who have witnessed the horses firsthand, the encounter is undeniably real, leaving a lasting impression that cannot be dismissed. Local folklore has embraced the phantom horses, weaving stories of spectral cavalry and loyal steeds who ride endlessly across the battlefield. Some believe the horses appear to honor the bravery of the soldiers they once carried, their gallop a tribute to sacrifice and loyalty. Others suggest the horses are restless, bound by the trauma of war, continuing to run because they cannot yet find peace. Stories tell of nights when the gallop grows louder and more frenzied, interpreted as the spirits reliving the intensity and chaos of battle, their energy echoing across the land. For those who ventured to the battlefield at night, the experience is profound. The sound of galloping hooves, the occasional glimpse of spectral figures, and the weight of history create a connection to the past that is both haunting and beautiful. The phantom horses are more than mere echoes. They are living memories, running tirelessly across the fields, a testament to loyalty, courage, and the unbroken bond between horse and rider. Even after the night has passed, the sound lingers in memory. The pounding of hooves seems to echo in the mind long after the field has fallen silent, a reminder that some spirits refuse to be forgotten. The phantom horses continue their eternal ride, unseen yet undeniably present, carrying the weight of history across the battlefield and into the hearts of all who bear witness. The river winds quietly through the forest, its waters reflecting the soft glow of the moon and the rustling of leaves overhead. By day, the area is tranquil, a place where hikers and nature lovers can walk along dirt paths, skip stones, or sit on the banks in quiet contemplation. But come nightfall, the serenity of the riverbank is disrupted by an unsettling mystery. Unexplained footprints that appear overnight, leading to and from the water, with no indication of who or what made them. These footprints have puzzled visitors for years, creating an air of intrigue and unease that lingers long after the sun rises. The prints are usually found in the soft soil near the river's edge or along muddy trails that wind through the forest. Witnesses describe them as human in shape but often larger or more elongated than normal. Some prints appear to have been made by boots, while others look bare, with faint impressions of toes and heels pressed into the earth. What is most perplexing is that they often appear in places that seem inaccessible, across dense underbrush, over rocks, or along the banks where the ground is too uneven for a normal person to traverse. By morning, the footprints are gone, leaving no trace of mud, disturbance, or human passage. One camper, Jenna, recounted her experience during a weekend trip to the river. She and her friends had set up tents near the water and spent the day hiking through the surrounding forest. In the early morning hours, she awoke to a soft rustling outside her tent. Curious, she unzipped the flap and stepped into the moonlit clearing. Her flashlight revealed a series of footprints in the dirt, leading from the river toward the forest and stopping abruptly near the tree line. Her heart raced as she scanned the area, but there was no sign of any person. By sunrise, the footprints had vanished completely, leaving the ground smooth and undisturbed, as if they had never existed. Other visitors have reported similar experiences. Hikers discover fresh prints in the morning, winding along trails they had traversed the day before. Some prints appear to cross streams or climb embankments in ways that defy logic. Attempts to follow the tracks often lead nowhere, as the prints stop suddenly or seem to disappear into thin air. Many witnesses describe a profound sense of unease when encountering these footprints, a feeling that they are being observed or that some unseen presence has passed through the forest. The phenomenon has inspired a range of theories. Some believe the footprints are supernatural in origin, the remnants of spirits who walk the riverbanks at night, unseen by the living. Others suggest that they are the echoes of people who once lived in the area, trapped in a residual haunting that replays their movements across the land. Skeptics propose natural explanations: animals walking in unusual patterns, shifting soil, or prints left by hikers who return under cover of darkness. But these theories fail to account for the size, shape, and sudden disappearance of the footprints. A particularly chilling account comes from a group of fishermen who camped near the river for a week. Each morning, they discovered footprints near their tents or along the banks, some appearing freshly pressed into the soil overnight. One morning, they counted more than a dozen prints, forming a path that began at the river, wound through the trees, and ended abruptly near a rocky cliff. No human or animal could be seen, and the prints showed no signs of dragging, slipping, or struggle. By the time they returned in the afternoon, the prints had vanished entirely. The men described a lingering sense of being watched, as if an invisible presence had observed their every movement. Local folklore adds to the mystery. Legends tell of spirits bound to the river, wandering along its banks in search of lost souls, or wandering endlessly in limbo. Some stories claim the footprints belong to travelers who disappeared along the river centuries ago, their presence imprinted in the soil as a warning or message to those who follow. Others suggest the prints are a playful or curious entity, testing the courage of campers and hikers, leaving trails only to erase them before they can be investigated. Researchers and paranormal enthusiasts have attempted to document the footprints. Cameras set to time-lapse mode, motion detectors, and night vision equipment sometimes capture movement along the trails, but rarely do these devices reveal the source of the prints. In some recordings, faint shadows or brief shapes appear and vanish, but no human or animal can be definitively identified. Audio equipment occasionally picks up the sound of footsteps in the dirt, yet when investigators approach, the noise stops. Despite these attempts, the mystery remains unsolved, leaving the footprints as one of the most elusive and unsettling phenomena of the river. For those who experience the unexplained footprints, the encounter is often a mix of fear, curiosity, and wonder. There is a sense that the forest itself is alive, responsive to human presence, and capable of creating phenomena that cannot be fully explained. Walkers along the river report heightened senses at night, the sound of leaves crunching under invisible feet, shadows flickering across the path, or the sudden feeling of being watched. These experiences are fleeting, but they leave an enduring impression, reminding visitors that the river and its banks may harbor forces beyond comprehension. Despite the unease, many are drawn to the river to witness the phenomenon firsthand. Hikers, campers, and paranormal enthusiasts return repeatedly, hoping to see the footprints form or to experience the presence responsible. Even if they never capture definitive proof, the anticipation and the strange occurrences themselves become part of the allure. The river, the forest, and the soft, disappearing prints leave an indelible mark on those who traverse them, creating stories that are shared and passed down, preserving the mystery for future generations. The unexplained footprints remain a haunting reminder that some forces, whether spiritual, residual, or otherwise, continue to move unseen among the living. They appear without warning, traverse impossible paths, and vanish without a trace, leaving only the memory of their existence. For those who witness them, the footprints are both a warning and a marvel, a glimpse into a world where the natural and supernatural intertwine. where the river whispers secrets through soil and shadow, and where the past refuses to stay buried. The forest of the park stretches for miles, its canopy thick with ancient oaks, maples, and pines. By day, sunlight filters through the leaves, casting dappled shadows across the forest floor, and the air is filled with birdsong and the rustle of leaves in the wind. But among these trees, certain specimens are said to be haunted silent, witnesses to a tragic battle that occurred long ago. Visitors who approach these trees often speak of a profound unease, an overwhelming sadness that seems to seep from the very bark. Some claim to see faces etched into the wood, fleeting and indistinct, as if the trees themselves bear the memories of the past. These haunted trees are often clustered near the edges of the battlefield, where the fiercest fighting took place. Locals warn that standing too close for too long can be emotionally overwhelming. Many hikers report a sudden heaviness in their chest, an inexplicable tightness in the throat, or the sensation of invisible eyes watching them. Even those who have visited for years describe the trees differently than other parts of the forest, noting a tangible shift in the air, a solemn quiet that seems to press in from all sides. One visitor, Emily, recounted her experience. She had ventured into the park during a late afternoon hike, curious about the stories of haunted trees. As she approached a cluster of ancient oaks near a small clearing, the air seemed to grow colder and heavier. A sense of melancholy washed over her, so intense that she nearly sat down on the forest floor to catch her breath. As she gazed at the trees, she thought she saw a face emerge in the bark of one particularly gnarled oak, eyes hollow, lips pressed tight in sorrow, an expression that seemed to plead silently. Blinking, she found the face gone, leaving only the twisted texture of the bark and the lingering echo of a feeling she could not shake. Others have reported similar encounters. Visitors walking the paths around these trees sometimes see faint shapes flitting between trunks or shadows that take on human-like forms. These apparitions rarely appear fully, but their presence is enough to evoke fear and fascination. Some hikers describe hearing whispers or faint sighs when standing near the haunted trees, voices that rise and fall with the wind and seem almost indistinguishable from the natural sounds of the forest. Others report sudden chills, goosebumps, and the sensation of being touched, though no one else is nearby. The faces seen in the bark are a particularly eerie phenomenon. They are never permanent, and their forms shift depending on the angle of light, the movement of leaves, or the observer's focus. Some appear anguished, with open mouths or furrowed brows, while others look mournful or hollow-eyed. For many, these faces evoke empathy, as if the trees themselves carry the weight of grief from those who perished on the battlefield. Children and adults alike have reported startling reactions to these visions, some stepping back in fear, others kneeling in silent contemplation, unable to turn away. Local folklore holds that the haunted trees are more than witnesses. They are guardians of memory. The trees were standing during the battle, watching soldiers fight and fall, absorbing the anguish, bravery, and loss of that fateful day. Over time, it is believed that these emotions became imprinted upon the trees, lingering in the fibers of the bark and the flow of sap. Some even suggest that the trees act as conduits between the living and the dead, a place where the energy of the past can touch those willing to witness it. Paranormal enthusiasts and researchers have studied the haunted trees, documenting accounts of faces, shadows, and inexplicable sensations. Cameras sometimes capture faint distortions or shapes near the trunks, though nothing conclusive. Audio recorders occasionally pick up whispers or indistinct murmurs when no one else is present. While skeptics argue that lighting, wind, and natural patterns in bark or moss can create illusions, the consistency of reports over decades often describing similar experiences at specific trees lends weight to the claims. Visitors who experience the haunted trees frequently report strong emotional reactions. Many describe feeling a deep sadness, almost like the trees themselves are mourning. Others feel an overwhelming sense of reverence, a recognition that they are in the presence of something ancient and profound. A few people have reported temporary paralysis of fear or are unable to move, until they consciously pulled themselves away. For some, the encounters leave lasting impressions, prompting reflections on life, mortality, and the enduring power of memory. One evening, a group of hikers entered the forest to photograph the sunset among the trees. As twilight deepened, they gathered near one of the oldest oaks. Without warning, the air grew still, and a heavy silence enveloped them. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally along the trunks, and a collective shiver ran through the group. Several claimed to see faces in the bark. Others swore they heard faint sobbing on the wind. Though the experience lasted only minutes, it left the group quiet and contemplative, a shared recognition that they had witnessed something beyond the ordinary. Despite or perhaps because of the fear they evoke, the haunted trees draw visitors year-round. Historians, hikers, and paranormal enthusiasts alike are drawn to these sentinels of memory, hoping to feel the weight of the past or glimpse a face in the bark. The trees serve as a reminder that nature itself can carry history, absorbing human experience in ways both subtle and profound. Walking among them is a journey through time, a chance to encounter the lingering spirits of a tragic day through the living witnesses of the forest. The haunted trees remain a silent, enduring presence, standing watch over the battlefield long after the echoes of war have faded. Their bark bears the marks of time, their branches stretch toward the sky as if holding up the memories of the fallen. For those who approach with open eyes and an attentive heart, the trees offer glimpses of sorrow, echoes of courage, and the haunting beauty of a landscape forever marked by history. Along the riverbank, where the waters move slowly and reflect the pale light of the moon, there exists a presence both sorrowful and haunting. The locals speak in hushed tones of the crying woman, a spirit said to linger where the battle once raged. Her sobs, mournful and raw, echo across the river at night, chilling anyone who hears them. The phenomenon is subtle at first, a soft murmur carried on the wind, but it grows steadily more distinct, unmistakably human, undeniably filled with grief. Those who hear her speak of a sound that pierces the soul, a sorrow so deep it seems to seep into the very air around them. Visitors often first notice the crying while walking along the dirt paths near the river, drawn by the haunting beauty of the water at night. The sobs are gentle at a distance, blending almost naturally with the ambient sounds of rustling leaves and flowing water. But as one draws closer, the sound becomes sharper, more urgent, trembling with a profound sense of loss. The cry is never loud or aggressive. Instead, it is fragile, a fragile echo of heartbreak that seems to hover just beyond the reach of understanding. Those who attempt to approach are often met with an eerie silence, as if the sound itself has fled, leaving only emptiness in its place. One visitor, a young man named Thomas, recounted his encounter. He had wandered to the riverbank alone one evening, hoping to photograph the moonlight reflecting off the water. As he walked along the path, a soft weeping reached his ears. At first, he thought it was a fellow hiker, perhaps lost or upset. He followed the sound cautiously, moving closer to the edge of the river. The crying grew louder, but when he stepped into the clearing, the sound abruptly stopped. Thomas scanned the area, shining his flashlight across the water and the trees, but the riverbank was empty. No figure, no shadow, nothing but the gentle rippling of water and the weight of an inexplicable sadness. The encounter left him shaken, the sensation of sorrow lingering long after he left the river. Others have reported similar experiences. Couples camping near the river awaken to the sound of a woman's sobbing outside their tents, only to find nothing when they step out. Hikers passing the banks at night sometimes hear the crying shift from distant to near and back again, as if the woman is moving with them, always just out of reach. The sound is described as hauntingly realistic, full of emotion, with sobs that catch in the throat and pauses that suggest contemplation, prayer, or despair. Witnesses often feel compelled to pause, listen, and acknowledge her grief, even though no living being can be seen. Local lore ties the crying woman to a tragic event during the battle that occurred decades ago. Some say she was a young woman who lost her husband or lover in the chaos, standing by the river as the last moments of the conflict unfolded. Overcome with grief, she wandered the banks, mourning until her life ended in sorrow. Others suggest her spirit remains tethered to the river, bound by the intensity of her loss, unable to move on. The sobs are said to be a manifestation of her eternal mourning, a grief so powerful that it imprints itself onto the environment, replaying across time for anyone who passes by. Encounters with the crying woman are not limited to sound alone. Some witnesses claim to have caught glimpses of a figure near the river, often seen in peripheral vision, a woman in flowing, old-fashioned clothing, hair disheveled, standing silently or kneeling at the water's edge. The figure disappears when directly observed, vanishing into the mist or blending into the darkness. On rare occasions, those who stop and approach report a sudden coldness, a chill that seems to wrap around the body, or the faint scent of flowers, earth, or smoke lingering in the air. These physical sensations add a tangible dimension to the otherwise auditory and visual experiences. Paranormal investigators have attempted to capture evidence of the crying woman. Audio recorders occasionally pick up sobs or faint murmurs when no one else is present, though playback often reveals distortion or odd frequencies that do not correspond to ordinary sounds. Cameras and night vision equipment sometimes detect fleeting shapes, movements that cannot be explained, or shadowy outlines along the riverbank. Despite repeated attempts, no conclusive photographic evidence has emerged, reinforcing the elusive nature of the phenomenon. Witnesses continue to rely on memory and personal experience, and each story adds to the legend rather than diminishing it. The emotional impact of encountering the crying woman is profound. Visitors often describe an immediate empathy, a sense of connection to someone who endured unimaginable loss. The sobs are not threatening. They are mournful, almost pleading for acknowledgement. Those who linger sometimes feel compelled to speak softly, whispering comfort or silently reflecting on the pain the woman must have felt. For some, the encounter is a sobering reminder of the human cost of war, a moment of intimacy with grief that transcends time and mortality. Despite the fear and sadness her presence evokes, the crying woman draws visitors to the riverbank. Historians, ghost enthusiasts, and curious hikers alike are drawn by the possibility of witnessing a spirit in mourning, a bridge between the past and present. Even those skeptical of the supernatural report being moved by the sound, noting the intensity and emotional weight of the experience. The river, the trees, and the soft murmur of water all contribute to an atmosphere that allows grief to become tangible, shaping the visitor's perception of the landscape itself. The crying woman remains a haunting reminder of love, loss, and memory. Her sobs echo across the riverbank on still nights, invisible yet unmistakably present, connecting the living with the sorrow of the past. For those who encounter her, the experience is unforgettable, a combination of fear, empathy, and awe. The river carries her cries through the forest, her grief timeless, her presence eternal, a testament to the enduring human spirit and the power of memory. The museum at River Raisin stands as a solemn reminder of the past, a place dedicated to preserving the memory of a battle that left its mark on the land and the people who lived there. By day, it is a site of learning, filled with artifacts, documents, and displays that bring history to life for visitors. School groups wander through its halls, tourists pause to admire relics, and historians carefully study the remnants of a bygone era. But when the crowds leave and the quiet of evening settles in, the museum reveals another side of itself, one shrouded in mystery and haunted by echoes of the battlefield just beyond its walls. Staff members and visitors alike have long reported strange occurrences within the building. Objects seem to move on their own, shifting slightly on display shelves or falling without explanation. Footsteps echo through empty hallways, their rhythm steady and deliberate, though no living person is there to make them. At times, muffled voices rise and fall as though caught in conversation, only to vanish when one strains to listen. The sense of being watched is perhaps the most common report, a prickling awareness that lingers even when one is alone in a room. The museum, though meticulously maintained, feels inhabited by more than just artifacts, feels alive with presences unseen. One of the most unnerving stories comes from a curator, who had been locking up late one evening. As she made her way through the main exhibit hall, she noticed one of the display cases slightly ajar, though she had checked it earlier that day. Inside, a soldier's uniform appeared to have shifted, the fabric no longer neatly arranged as it had been hours before. As she reached to secure the case, a sudden chill washed over her, and in the glass, she swore she saw the faint reflection of a man in military garb standing just behind her. She spun around, but the hall was empty. When she turned back, the reflection was gone, yet the cold lingered until she hurried out of the building. Other staff members share similar experiences. Some speak of hearing the clatter of boots on the wooden floors, a steady march that reverberates through the rooms, especially near the exhibits containing weapons and battle gear. Others recall doors opening and closing on their own, with the sound echoing down deserted corridors. On several occasions, alarms have been triggered in the middle of the night, only for security personnel to find nothing disturbed. Yet more than once, cameras monitoring the exhibits have shown flickers of movement shadows passing across the floor or faint shapes hovering near the glass cases. Visitors, too, have added to the lore of the haunted museum. A man touring with his family claimed to hear whispering voices near the section displaying soldiers' letters and personal belongings. The words were indistinct, but he described them as urgent, almost pleading. When he turned to his wife, she shook her head. She had heard nothing. Another visitor, a young woman, reported feeling an invisible hand brush against her arm as she studied a collection of rusted muskets. She described the sensation as startling but strangely gentle, as if a soldier was trying to make contact across the centuries. One recurring phenomenon involves the sound of faint drumming. Staff and guests have reported hearing rhythmic beats echoing through the museum, reminiscent of the military drums once used to signal troops on the battlefield. The sound often comes from the second floor, where no live demonstrations are held, and it ceases the moment anyone investigates. Paranormal researchers who have spent nights inside the museum with recording equipment have captured similar soft thuds in perfect sequence, like the beat of unseen hands on a drum. Perhaps the most chilling accounts come from those who have encountered full apparitions. One security guard patrolling the museum after hours described seeing a man in period clothing standing near the entrance to the main hall. The figure appeared solid, dressed in a tattered uniform, and turned as if to meet the guard's gaze before vanishing into thin air. The guard was so shaken that he requested never to work night shifts again. On another occasion, two staff members preparing for an early morning event entered a room only to find a shadowy figure seated in one of the chairs. As they stood frozen, the figure dissolved before their eyes, leaving the chair empty. Historians suggest that the spirits lingering in the museum may be soldiers unwilling to leave the battlefield behind. Their belongings, preserved and displayed for the living, may serve as anchors, binding their presence to the objects that once held such personal meaning. Letters written in desperation, weapons carried into battle, and uniforms worn in their final moments are not merely artifacts, they are pieces of lives cut short, steeped in memory and emotion. For spirits bound by grief, loyalty, or unfinished business, the museum may feel like home. Even skeptics find it difficult to dismiss the sheer volume of experiences. While drafts, building shifts, and overactive imaginations might explain some reports, the consistency of the accounts across decades raises questions. Employees who work in the museum for years eventually admit to hearing the unexplained footsteps, feeling sudden chills, or catching glimpses of figures in the corner of their vision. Tourists who arrive unaware of the building's reputation sometimes leave with stories of their own, unable to explain the sensations or sounds they encountered. The haunted reputation of the museum has become part of its identity. Paranormal investigators are occasionally permitted to conduct overnight studies, and local folklore has embraced the idea of spirits wandering its halls. For visitors, the possibility of encountering the supernatural adds another layer of fascination to the history on display. The past does not feel distant in the museum. It feels immediate, present, and watching. The museum at River Raisin stands as both a tribute to the lives lost and a vessel of lingering memory. By day, It educates and preserves, offering a tangible connection to history. By night, it whispers, echoes, and reveals its hidden inhabitants. The soldiers who fought and died on the battlefield seem unwilling to leave entirely, their spirits following the relics into the museum, bound by loyalty, sorrow, and unfinished stories. To walk its halls is to encounter not only history, but also the presence of those who lived it, still waiting, still watching, and perhaps still reaching out across the divide between past and present. The story of the vanishing park ranger has been whispered among the staff and visitors of River Raisin for decades. It is one of the most persistent and chilling tales tied to the grounds, a story that blends the duty of service with the mysteries of the afterlife. Many who work in the park speak of the figure in hushed tones, hesitant to share too much for fear of inviting the experience themselves. Yet the encounters are so numerous, so consistent, that the legend of the Phantom Ranger has become as much a part of the park's lore as the battle that once raged upon its soil. The sightings almost always begin the same way. A ranger, making their rounds on the trails, will catch sight of another uniformed figure up ahead. At first, nothing seems unusual. The figure is often described as tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the distinct ranger hat and the greenish-brown uniform that is instantly recognizable. The Phantom Ranger appears to be patrolling, walking slowly along the path, as if inspecting the grounds. Sometimes, he is seen standing at a distance, looking out across the fields with hands resting on his belt, as though deep in thought. In every account, the presence is calm, steady, and purposeful. Those who see him often quicken their pace, eager to catch up to what they assume is another ranger on duty. But as they approach, the figure never seems to get any closer. Step after step, the distance remains the same, until suddenly, the ranger rounds a corner or slips behind a tree. When the living ranger finally reaches that spot, the trail ahead is empty. There are no footprints, no sounds of movement, and no trace of the figure they had been following. It is as though he simply vanishes into the air, leaving behind only the uneasy silence of the woods. Some have experienced the opposite. Instead of trailing behind the Phantom Ranger, they encounter him suddenly ahead, standing in a place where no one should be. One young ranger recounted walking a trail late one evening, when she noticed a man in uniform standing just at the edge of the trees. His posture was rigid, his gaze fixed on the horizon, and though the light was dim, she could make out the shape of his hat and the outline of his jacket. She called out a greeting, but the man gave no reply. When she stepped forward, he turned and walked deeper into the woods. Concerned, she followed for only a few yards before realizing she could no longer hear his footsteps. Within moments, the figure dissolved into the shadows, leaving her shaken and alone. Stories of the Phantom Ranger vary slightly, but one detail remains constant. He never speaks. No matter how many witnesses have tried to call out or engage him, the spirit remains silent. This silence has fueled speculation about his identity. Some believe he is the lingering spirit of a ranger who lost his life in the line of duty, still fulfilling his responsibility to guard the park. Though records are scarce, there are stories of rangers who faced tragedy while working in isolated areas. One tale speaks of a ranger who suffered a fatal accident during a storm, caught in the path of falling trees as he rushed to close trails for visitor safety. Others claim he may have been a victim of illness, collapsing during his patrol and never making it back to the station. The idea that his spirit continues to walk the trails brings both comfort and unease. For some, it is a reminder of the dedication and sacrifice of those who protect the park. For others, it is a chilling sign that death does not release everyone from their duties, whether bound by loyalty, unfinished business, or simply habit. The vanishing ranger seems unable or unwilling to leave the land he once protected. Visitors, to have claimed to see the figure. Hikers unfamiliar with the park's legends have reported meeting a ranger along the trail who silently gestures toward a particular direction, as if guiding them. When they look back to thank him, he is gone. A family once told of becoming disoriented near dusk, unsure of which trail led back to the parking lot. They spotted a ranger in the distance, walking steadily, and hurried to follow him. But after a short time, The figure disappeared around the bend. When they reached it, the trail split into two, and they realized they were completely alone. They chose the right path by chance, but later, when sharing their story with staff, they were told that no ranger had been assigned to that area that evening. The park staff, though cautious about spreading ghost stories, acknowledged the strange encounters. Some even quietly honor the presence, leaving their own silent acknowledgments during patrols. A few have admitted that on lonely nights, the thought of the Phantom Ranger brings them comfort. The idea that something is out there, watching over the trails, provides a sense of companionship, even if that someone no longer belongs to the living. Paranormal investigators who have tried to document the vanishing ranger often leave with little more than faint anomalies. Recordings capture soft footsteps when no one is present, or static bursts when investigators ask direct questions. Thermal cameras occasionally register cold spots in areas where witnesses have reported seeing the apparition, but no clear evidence has ever been captured. The spirit remains elusive, appearing when least expected and vanishing before proof can be gathered. Skeptics argue that the sightings may be tricks of light, fatigue, or the natural human tendency to find patterns in shadows. Long patrols and the solitude of the trails can play tricks on the mind, especially when dusk or fog cloaks the land in eerie silence. Yet even skeptics admit the frequency and consistency of the stories is unusual. Too many experienced rangers, hardened to long nights and isolation, have shared nearly identical accounts for the legend to be dismissed entirely. The vanishing park ranger remains a mystery, one that lingers with each new generation of staff and visitors. Whether spirit, memory, or illusion, his presence continues to walk the trails, silent and steady, as though the boundaries between life and death mean little to him. He is both a guardian and a ghost, a reminder that dedication can outlast mortality itself. For those who catch sight of him, the experience leaves an indelible mark, a story they carry with them long after they leave the park's borders. And perhaps, in some quiet way, that is exactly what the vanishing ranger intends. To be remembered, to remain, and to ensure the land he once protected is never truly left alone. On calm nights at River Raisin, when the moon hangs low and the battlefield lies cloaked in silver light, the wind sometimes stirs in ways that defy explanation. It doesn't move like the ordinary breeze that rustles leaves and bends grass. Instead, it carries with it faint whispers, soft as sighs, threading their way across the open fields and through the trees. Those who have lingered on the grounds after dusk tell of hearing voices drifting with the air, fragmented words, fleeting tones, and hushed conversations that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. The phenomenon is known among locals as the whispering wind, and many believe it is the voices of fallen soldiers, still trying to reach out from beyond the grave. The first accounts stretch back generations, carried through folklore and campfire tales. Farmers who once worked the nearby land claimed they would hear murmurs while tending their fields late into the evening. Sometimes the whispers came as a low chorus, as though dozens of unseen voices moved together on the air. At other times, a single voice could be distinguished, calling out with desperation or pleading sorrow. No matter how intently the farmers listened, the words always faded before they could be fully understood. They described the sound as both human and unnatural, too deliberate to be mistaken for wind alone, yet impossible to trace. Modern visitors echo the same chilling experiences. Hikers and history enthusiasts walking the grounds at twilight often describe a sudden shift in the air. The breeze grows cool, and with it comes the faint impression of voices. Some say the whispers feel like distant prayers, recited in tones of grief. Others swear they hear commands barked sharply, as though officers are still rallying their men for battle. A few claim they've heard cries of pain, brief but gut-wrenching, rising on the wind before dissolving into silence. One ranger, who has worked the park for over a decade, recalled an experience that shook him deeply. While making rounds late one evening, he paused near a grove of trees to listen to the rustle of branches. The night was quiet, with no other visitors nearby. Suddenly, he became aware of faint voices rising with the wind, circling him as though spoken just out of reach. The words were muffled, indecipherable, but the emotion behind them was unmistakable fear, sorrow, and urgency. He described the sensation as though standing in the middle of a crowd, yet unable to see a single person. The voices faded as abruptly as they began, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of sadness that lingered with him for days. Not all encounters with the whispering wind are marked by fear. Some visitors report a strange calm in the voices, as though the spirits of the fallen are not seeking to frighten but to be remembered. A woman visiting the battlefield with her father recounted how they stopped by the riverbank one evening. As they stood in silence, she felt the breeze pass by her ear and heard what she believed was the word home, whispered softly. Her father, standing several feet away, turned suddenly, claiming he too had heard a faint voice. Neither could explain the experience, but both agreed the moment felt more sorrowful than sinister, as if a soldier had been longing for something he would never again reach. Paranormal investigators who have studied the site have recorded audio during late-night sessions, often capturing unexplained voices. In many of these recordings, whispers are audible, though faint, blending into the sound of the moving wind. While skeptics argue that such noises can be explained by environmental factors, leaves brushing together, distant animals, or the brain's natural tendency to create patterns, the consistency of the phenomenon raises questions. The whispers often seem too articulate, too human, to dismiss as mere chance. Legends surrounding the whispering wind tie directly to the tragedy that unfolded on the battlefield. Hundreds of soldiers perished here, many in brutal fashion, their bodies left scattered on the ground. For some, the idea that their voices linger in the air is a fitting extension of their unfinished story. Trapped between duty and death, their spirits may still be reaching for recognition, for comfort, or simply for acknowledgement that they once lived and fought on this soil. The whispers, in this sense, are less about haunting and more about remembrance, a reminder that the voices of the past never truly fall silent. Still, the experience can be unnerving. A group of campers once reported waking in the night to the sound of whispers encircling their tent. They initially thought another group had wandered nearby, but when they unzipped the flap and looked out, the field was empty. The voices continued for several minutes, rising and falling with the breeze, before fading completely. The campers left at dawn, unable to shake the feeling that they had been surrounded not by the living, but by unseen witnesses of the past. The whispering wind has become part of the identity of the battlefield, a phenomenon both feared and respected. For some, it is evidence of restless spirits calling out to the living. For others, it is the natural world carrying with it the heavy memories of what transpired here. Whether paranormal or not, the whispers leave a lasting impression on all who hear them, connecting them in a deeply personal way to the history of the land. Those who believe in the supernatural argue that the whispers are a form of communication, an attempt by the dead to share their stories. Perhaps they speak to remind visitors of the cost of war, to ensure that the sacrifices made are never forgotten. Perhaps they are searching for peace, their words carried away by the wind because they cannot be spoken directly. Skeptics, on the other hand, see the phenomenon as the mind's response to suggestion, shaped by the haunting reputation of the battlefield. Yet even skeptics often leave with a quiet unease, unwilling to dismiss entirely what they've heard. On nights when the air grows still and the wind rises unexpectedly, many who walk the battlefield pause to listen, straining their ears for the faint murmur that might ride the breeze. The whispers, fleeting and fragile, seem to bridge the gap between past and present, life and death. Whether one interprets them as spirits, echoes, or imagination, the effect is undeniable. The battlefield does not rest quietly. It breathes, it remembers, and it speaks through the wind. For those who hear it, the experience lingers long after they have left, a reminder that some voices are too strong to be silenced by time. The overlook at River Raisin offers one of the most breathtaking views in the park. From its high vantage point, visitors can see the sweeping fields below, the winding river glinting in the sunlight, and the distant tree line that seems to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. It is a place where history and beauty converge, where families gather during the day to take photos, Hikers pause to rest, and historians reflect on the land that once ran red with blood. But as the sun dips below the horizon and night begins to settle in, the overlook becomes something entirely different. A place where the line between past and present blurs, and shadows stir in ways that defy explanation. For years, visitors have reported strange phenomena while standing at the overlook. The most common experience is seeing movement below, shadows drifting across the fields where no living person walks. These are not the fleeting shapes caused by shifting clouds or swaying trees. Witnesses describe them as distinctly human figures, often moving in groups, as though marching across the battlefield. Some appear in formation, with the precision of soldiers moving together, while others seem scattered, wandering aimlessly, as if searching for something lost. No matter how carefully one watches, the figures never come close enough to be clearly identified. And when the field is checked, it is always empty. One of the earliest accounts came from a veteran visiting the park with his family. As he stood at the overlook, his attention was drawn to the movement of dark shapes below. At first, he thought they were reenactors, perhaps staging a demonstration, but the precision of their march and the silence that accompanied them unsettled him. The figures moved swiftly across the open ground, then faded into nothing. His family, standing beside him, saw nothing at all. The veteran never forgot the sight, describing it as both haunting and strangely reverent, as though the battlefield itself had revealed its ghosts to him alone. Since then, countless others have experienced the same unnerving vision. Couples out for evening walks, school groups on field trips, and even rangers patrolling the grounds have all reported seeing shadows below the overlook. Some insist the figures appear only in moonlight, their dark forms illuminated against the pale grass. Others claim the apparitions rise most often during misty evenings, when fog clings to the fields and the air feels thick with memory. In every case, the shadows are silent, their movements eerily smooth, and they vanish the moment anyone tries to approach. Perhaps the most chilling detail shared by multiple witnesses is the sense of sound that follows the sight. Though the shadows make no noise themselves, some report hearing the faint rhythm of marching feet carried on the air. The sound is distant, but distinct, the steady beat of boots striking the earth in unison. A few have even claimed to hear muffled commands, shouted in voices that echo faintly before being swallowed by the night. The idea that these are echoes of the battle, replaying endlessly on the land where so many lives were lost, has taken firm hold in the local lore. A park ranger once recounted an experience that left him shaken. While closing the grounds late one evening, he paused at the overlook to scan the field with his flashlight. As the beam swept across the grass, he noticed a cluster of dark figures near the riverbank. They appeared to be moving together, their bodies blending into the shadows, yet their shapes were unmistakably human. He blinked, adjusted the light, and in an instant they were gone. Moments later, he heard the faint sound of drumming, low and steady, echoing from the direction of the field. Though he searched thoroughly, the land below was deserted. Visitors often describe an overwhelming emotional response to the overlook. For some, it is an intense sadness that rises suddenly, as though the weight of loss presses down upon them. For others, it is a sense of awe, a feeling that they are standing on sacred ground where the presence of the past is palpable. Many who witness the shadows speak of goosebumps, chills, or a sudden drop in temperature, even on warm summer nights. The phenomenon seems less like a random haunting and more like a reenactment of memory itself, the land replaying the events of that tragic day through ghostly impressions. Skeptics argue that the sightings can be explained by natural causes. Shadows cast by trees, the play of moonlight, or even the mind's tendency to find patterns in darkness may account for what people see. Yet these explanations falter in the face of the sheer number of reports, many of which describe nearly identical details across decades. The consistency of the stories, combined with the emotional intensity they provoke, makes it difficult to dismiss them entirely. Even skeptics admit that standing at the overlook at night carries a strange, unshakable energy, as though something unseen watches from below. Folklore has added further layers to the legend of the haunted overlook. Some believe the shadows are the spirits of soldiers who never left the battlefield, still bound to their duty, forever marching toward a fight that ended long ago. Others claim the figures are not individual souls, but residual energy imprinted upon the land. A replay of the chaos that unfolded when the battle reached its bloodiest point. A few suggest the overlook itself acts as a threshold, a place where the boundary between worlds is thinner, allowing glimpses into the past. Over time, the haunted overlook has become a destination for those seeking to experience the paranormal. Ghost hunters bring their equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the shadows or the sounds of marching. Tourists linger after dark, daring each other to look into the fields and see what might appear. Some leave disappointed, seeing only empty land. Others leave pale and shaken, swearing they saw dark figures moving in silence, their forms swallowed by mist. What makes the haunted overlook so compelling is not only the mystery of the shadows, but the way they connect visitors directly to history. The battlefield was once alive with soldiers, their movements, their voices, and their struggles echoing across the very ground that now lies quiet. To witness the shadows is to glimpse that history made manifest, to see the sacrifices of the past replayed through spectral impressions. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the effect is undeniable. The overlook holds power, both as a vantage point over the land and as a portal into memory. At night, when the moonlight falls across the fields and the wind stirs softly through the grass, the overlook feels far from empty. It becomes a place of echoes and shadows, where figures move silently below, unseen by some but undeniable to others. For those who stand there long enough, listening closely and watching carefully, the battlefield reveals that its story has not ended. The soldiers may have fallen long ago, but their presence lingers, etched into the land itself, still marching through the night as shadows beneath the haunted overlook. River Raisin National Battlefield Park stands today as a place of solemn remembrance, a preserved landscape where history and memory intertwine. It is a site where visitors come to learn, to reflect, and to honor the sacrifices of those who gave their lives. During one of the most devastating battles of the War of 1812, the fields, the riverbanks, the quiet groves of trees, every inch of this hallowed ground carries the weight of loss and legacy. Yet alongside its role as a memorial, the battlefield is also a place where the echoes of the past refuse to fade. Paranormal activity is frequently reported here, as though the spirits of the fallen remain tethered to the land, unwilling to let their stories slip into silence. Those who walk the trails of the park often speak of a heavy stillness in the air, a silence that feels different from ordinary quiet. It is a silence that seems to listen, to breathe, and to carry with it unseen eyes. Visitors frequently describe the sensation of being watched, as though the soldiers who fell here continue to observe those who now tread upon their final resting place. Some find comfort in this feeling, interpreting it as the spirit's way of ensuring their sacrifices are remembered. Others find it unsettling, a reminder that this is not merely a park, but a cemetery without headstones, a land marked forever by the tragedy it witnessed. One of the most enduring reports is that of footsteps echoing across the grounds. Tourists walking alone have claimed to hear the crunch of boots behind them, steady and deliberate, only to turn and find no one there. Sometimes the footsteps follow for several paces before fading into nothing. Rangers on night patrols have experienced the same phenomenon, their radios crackling faintly as though disturbed by unseen energy. The sound of marching feet is one of the clearest reminders of what took place. Here troops moving into position, soldiers advancing into battle, men who would never return home. Apparitions are also said to appear on the battlefield, fleeting figures that vanish when approached. Some are described as soldiers in formation, their outlines faint but unmistakable as they move across the fields. Others are solitary, lingering near the riverbank or standing beneath the trees with an air of sorrow, as though they are impressions of the past, replaying themselves again and again. These sightings are sometimes interpreted as residual hauntings, moments of intense emotion burned into the landscape, replayed for centuries after the battle's end. Perhaps most poignant are the sounds that drift across the park on certain nights. Visitors have reported hearing muffled cries, the clash of steel, or even the faint roll of drums echoing across the fields. Some claim to hear whispered prayers, words carried on the wind that cannot be fully understood. These sounds, often fleeting and fragile, deepen the sense that the battlefield is alive with memory, that the soldiers who died here continue to make their presence known in ways that defy explanation. Not all experiences are terrifying. Many visitors describe encounters that feel more mournful than menacing. A family visiting the park once told of hearing faint sobbing near the cemetery at dusk. The sound was soft, almost like the weeping of a woman. Yet, when they searched the grounds, no one was there. They left the park with a sense of sorrow rather than fear, convinced that what they had heard was a grieving spirit still mourning the dead. Others recount moments of sudden calm, when a breeze passes through the fields and brings with it a feeling of reverence, as though the spirits themselves are acknowledging the presence of the living. Historians and paranormal investigators alike have studied the battlefield, attempting to explain or capture its mysteries. Recordings often pick up faint voices, whispers, or cries that cannot be traced to any living source. Cameras have captured anomalies, blurs of light, unexplained shadows, or orbs floating across the frame. Some dismiss these as tricks of nature, the result of lighting or the natural acoustics of the land. Yet, for those who have stood in the dark fields and heard the unmistakable sound of marching feet or the cry of a distant voice, no explanation feels sufficient. The persistence of these phenomena ties directly to the magnitude of what happened here. Hundreds of soldiers perished at River Raisin, many of them young, many far from home. Their lives ended abruptly and violently, leaving behind unfinished stories and unspoken words. For some, the belief that their spirits linger is a way of understanding the emotional weight that saturates the land. These hauntings are not simply ghost stories, they are manifestations of memory. Reminders of a sacrifice so great that it cannot be forgotten, even in death. River Raisin is not only haunted by tragedy, but also hallowed by remembrance. Each year, ceremonies are held to honor those who fell, and visitors come to pay respects to a past that continues to shape the present. The paranormal activity, far from diminishing the park's role as a memorial, seems to enhance it. The whispers, the shadows, the unseen presences all serve as reminders that history is not distant. It lingers, it breathes, and it demands recognition. For many, the idea that the spirits still walk the grounds is a form of solace. It means the soldiers have not been forgotten, that their sacrifices remain etched into the land itself. To walk through the park is to walk among them, to feel their presence woven into the trees, the river, and the soil. The final resting place is not marked by stone or monument. Alone it is the entire battlefield, preserved in memory and spirit alike. River Raisin National Battlefield Park is a place where history refuses to be silent. By day, it educates and commemorates, inviting visitors to learn about the cost of war. By night, it whispers and echoes, reminding all who enter that the sacrifices made here still matter, still resonate, and still shape the world we know today. The fallen soldiers may no longer walk among the living, but their spirits endure, haunting the grounds not out of malice, but out of devotion. They remain watchful, ensuring that their final resting place is never forgotten. Thank you for walking with us through the shadows of history tonight. As the wind rustles through the trees and the spirits of River Raisin watch silently from the past, remember that every story, every whisper, and every shadow carries a piece of history waiting to be heard. May you leave with a shiver, a story to tell, and a newfound respect for the restless souls who linger here. Until our next journey into the unknown, keep your lanterns lit, your heart brave, and your mind open, for the past is never truly gone.